look.
Hi, everyone. Glad to see you guys all here. Hopefully, we'll have a bunch more people join in today. But again, I just want to remind everybody that in our normal fashion, we are all sitting here with a little early happy hour for everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. But this live stream is for you guys to answer your questions about moving to or living in Alaska. And so if you're new to my channel or you're not familiar with the others that you see on the screen, to my, I guess that would be left, to the left of me here is Sarah and Rob from Curmudge in Alaska, who live just outside of Chase, Alaska, which is near Talkeetna. And then at the bottom of the screen, you will see Adam and Phyllis from Alaska Cut the Cord, who live in Willow, Alaska, which is about an hour north of Anchorage. Is that true?
Yeah, about an hour and 15.
Yeah, about an hour and 15. And then if you're new to my channel, I am alone and I live in the Copper River Basin, which is closer to the Canadian border than it is to either of the other two channels you see here.
Yep.
In the Copper River Basin.
Oh, there you go.
I just did the same thing I did.
So I'm going to just go through here and just acknowledge some of the people that we have in here. But remember, if you want to ask a question, to start that question with the thumbs up emoji, and then that will alert us that there's a question on the screen. If you'd like to address a question directly to one channel or the other, you can just type in the @ symbol followed by their channel name, and that'll direct it directly to those persons. Or you can say @ Rob or @ Sarah, @ Adam, @ Phyllis, @ Alone, and we'll answer the questions independently then for you guys. So before I talk too much more, let's get right into this. So we have Russell RW here. So thank you for being here with us today, Russell. Same to you, Monica Lynn, and more from Russell here. Arland is here joining us this morning. JR, thank you for being here. And Ira Handworker, thank you and your mom for joining us. Cranky Aunt Linda, always good to see you. And Seashell B, thank you for being here. And let's see here. We have Paula and Jason from P&J's Homestead. Good to see you here. And Clayton Ryder, good to see you in here as well. And Cranky and Linda says, my 33rd anniversary is next Sunday. I supposedly choose the date, several reasons, so David can remember it. There you go. That's a good thing to do. Purposely, sorry. Had trouble reading that word. Robert Bartman, thank you for being here today. Robert says hi alone and all on the chat. Good to be with you all. Good to have you here also. And going through some salutations. And to Chandra Hines, thank you for being here. And she says hello from Willow, Alaska. Right there in your neck of the woods, Adam and Phyllis. And Cindy the Beautiful is coming to us from California. Matt AK is here for the party. Thank you for being here, Matt and Cindy. And Saul Ahmed is here. Saul. Thank you for being here. Dana Grower, thank you for being here with us. Appreciate it. And we have Ray from Raised in Alaska. The weather here is good. It snowed overnight. I got about 8 inches of snow here. How much did you get, Rob and Sarah?
We got about 2 inches, and we're currently 37.
Yeah, I don't know what the temperature is out here, but I know today it's supposed to be in the mid 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're not hitting it yet. We got about 1 inch of snow, but it's like melting as it comes down.
Yeah.
So is it?
Yeah.
And
yeah, they're talking actual rain tonight after midnight.
Yeah, that's what ours says too, is that it's supposed to turn to rain.
Yeah, I just got a notification of the same thing.
It is a season, that's for sure. We have Railroad Mike here this morning who says, good after morning, Miss Alone, Curmudgeon, and Alaska Cut the Cord, and those in the chat. And Donna Heaton, thank you for being here. Donna says, happy St. Patrick's Day from this half Irish girl. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you from those of us who may or may not have any Irish in us.
You do now.
Yeah.
Right. And we have Happy with us today. Happy says, hi to you all from Exis, UK in Great Britain. Love all things Alaska. And AK Dog Mom is here. Thank you, Kim, for joining us today. Matt's Garage is also here. Greeting everyone. And Diana Sargent is here, who says hi alone and everyone from my little mountain town in Richlands, Virginia. Thank you guys for being here. Russell says, what is all three of you guys' plans for St. Patty's Day?
Sitting here.
They're doing a live.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. We wanted to do a corned beef and cabbage, and it turns out the freezer says we don't have one. So
And here, I was digging through the freezer yesterday. I'm like, I could have sworn I had one. I'm like,
I
so
know.
did we.
I got a can of corned beef I could send your way. It might take
We do have
half a day to get to you, though.
Yeah, I've got plenty of that.
you get that carrier eagle going.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Carrier
yeah.
eagle.
I might try to break out the barbecue grill today and do some tuna on that.
Oh, that sounds good.
See, that's one thing I've got to get up. I've got to get some kind of grill up here. I do not have a grill here. I've got a small hibachi. But I don't have charcoal for it.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just use the fire pit outside to do all my cooking. Well, all my grilling, I should say, not cooking, but grilling. And I'm anxious to get that fire pit unburied from the snow and start using it again. It's been a while.
Heck yeah.
I like that one my Phyllis have. That's a really good, nice one. The solo
It is
stove
nice. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
fire pit. And you can grill on that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. We've got a grill top for it.
Well, we grilled on it for the Iditarod.
Yeah, for the Iditarod, we had shish kebabs on the solo stove.
Nice. Nice. So we've got Ward Adams here who says hi there. Thanks for being here, Ward.
Hey, Ward.
Say again.
I said, hey, Ward.
Hey, Ward. Lisa says, much love and light from New Zealand. Thank you for being here. And my dear friend Mike Falonga is here. Mike, I know I mispronounced your last name again, but thanks for being here, Mike. Long time no see. Good to see you in here. P&J is reminding everybody to hit the thumbs up button. We appreciate that. And remember, you can tune into all of our channels. I believe Rob is streaming on his channel. If not, apologies. But we know Adam and Phyllis are, so you can flip back and forth if you want to support one channel or the other. And I should be able to see your comments here in StreamYard, where I'm streaming from currently. And Dana says, I'm in Northwest Montana, where it'll be 60 degrees today, a heat wave.
Ooh.
That is a heat wave. Patty Jackson is coming to us from Sweet Home, Alabama. And Chandra says, all of these Alaskans in one place. Summer is coming, and it's going to be a magnificent summer. So speaking of summer, what are your plans for this summer? Any big projects for any of you?
Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, for us, no, I wouldn't say any big projects. I would say what we're going to be doing more of is enjoying Alaska for what it has to offer. We've got a black bear hunt planned here in a month or so. We've got one, maybe two caribou hunts planned this fall, and then moose hunting with Rob, and every single moment in between fishing. So between dip netting and snagging and just fishing. So yeah, it's going to be busy here.
Yeah, that sounds like my plans too. Definitely want to get some hunting in again this fall. Definitely going to be doing lots of fishing, both ocean and lake, river, stream, whatever I can get to this year. And also just touring Alaska as much as I possibly can. So definitely plans here, not to mention things taking place around the property.
All right. Do you have big plans on your property alone?
I do have some big plans, but it's a matter of managing the finances and just trying to figure out where my priorities really are. One thing that I would like to do is get the new wood cook stove put in. I think that's a big priority. Getting the railings put up on my stairs, that's another priority. But I have other things like getting new outhouses put up. It's a priority, but not really a priority because I still have an outhouse that's functioning. Getting the balcony put on the back of the property, that would be nice, but it's a luxury. So some things, weigh more than others. It's like, what do I need to actually survive here? And that wood stove that I have now, I know you've mentioned it because it has a crack in the top of the wood stove. That's one of the things when you buy these older cabins, especially when you're out in these remote areas, there's no home inspections, right? There's no home inspector that's going to come out and inspect your cabin. And so you run the risk of inheriting whatever you might find on that property. And for me, it was a wood stove that was about 30 years old and not in the best working condition. I've made it work so far, but that crack is growing. And so it's one of those things I need to replace. Plus, I tried to cook a couple of things on top of it the other night, baking on top of the wood stove. I made some pecan chicken and some cheesy potatoes. And I struggled for about the first 40 minutes trying to fit everything on this tiny little wood stove with roasters on top of it to make it act as an oven. And so if I had a traditional, wood cook stove, it'd be a lot better.
Are you getting one like what Rob and Sarah have?
Kind of. The one I'm looking at is a J.A. Roby. They're out of Canada. There's not a dealer for them in Alaska. So I'd have to have it shipped up from Washington and probably have an installer follow it up here. Because the guy who I was planning on doing the install for any wood stove that I got in the future, I'm not sure he's actually still in business. And the last public notice he put out was that his assistant of something like the last 30 years had up and quit on him. And he was trying to figure out how to do all the administrative things. And that was a couple of years ago. And someone had left a comment on there about, we've been trying to get a hold of you for weeks. What are we supposed to do? Wait forever? And there was no response to that. So I'm like, maybe I need to just fly somebody up here. And that is the sentiment, at least where I reside in Alaska, is that if you need work done on your property, you're better off finding somebody in the lower 48 states who you trust to do the work and paying for them to have a working vacation up here to get the work done. Because getting somebody to come from one of the major cities like Anchorage or Fairbanks is difficult because they're busy in their neck of the woods. And getting somebody on this side of the state to do the work is difficult because either they're busy because they're the only person in the area, or because they really just don't want to work because they came here to enjoy Alaska and not really do the work.
Yep.
So a couple things that make it difficult to get work done.
Yeah, the install, if you go straight up through the roof, I don't know if you're going to plan it that way or if you're going to go out an end wall. But
no, it's in the middle of the cabin. So as the wood stove is now, it goes straight up and it goes right to the highest
peak. Perfect.
Yeah, right at
easiest way to do it is that way. That's where we made the mistake with ours because we didn't have the room with our stove when it was already, the flue was already in.
Yep.
And it was too far to one side. So now this summer, Adam and Phyllis are going to come up and they're going to help us shift it all over about a foot.
Yeah.
Straight flow going up with the flue and not be an issue.
Phyllis didn't.
Apparently, Phyllis didn't know of these plans.
You sure we talked about it? Yeah.
I think it was you and I talking about it upstairs, Rob.
They were probably doing their thing, the girls.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
It shouldn't be bad.
Oops, sorry.
Well, is it going to be the same time we build the shelter by the tracks?
I don't know. Maybe if we can combine the two.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. As soon as my mill is ready to be used, I'll be milling wood like this mill tomorrow. I found a whole bunch of trees that are millable. So I got to get them here in the next few weeks before all the snow is gone, because it's going to be easier to get when we have snow.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes to the question that Lone asked about projects for us. We've got to patch the roof over in the cabin, which would take me about a day and a half. It's just got a couple of weak spots. We just got to pull out the planks and we're going to put plywood down over it, put the battens down and put the metal on top of it.
Right.
Greenhouse, this just like Adam and Phyllis, just got to get that up and running. But big projects, having fun.
Yeah.
That's
We're going to travel a little bit this year, which we have not done.
This will be our third summer here, technically our third.
Yep.
But we haven't traveled at all. Our traveling is from here to Anchorage.
Yeah, that's it.
And back. And that's not fun. So we're going to either do the loop, go up to Fairbanks, then go down towards Glen Allen and Toke and stuff like that, and then back over. Or we're going to go down to Kenai. We haven't decided yet, but we're going to do that in May. Biggest issue is we got to find a house sitter.
Yeah.
We find somebody to come up and watch Zeus and the chickens, because we can't leave more than 2-3 days at a time with the chickens.
Right.
With our bear population here, it's no good.
And the new wolf invasion.
Yeah, now with the wolves in the area.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be fun. Like Adam, my intention, as soon as the bears are up and about, I'm going after a couple of them and then doing a lot of fishing.
Yeah.
We're hoping
Go
what's
ahead,
that?
Rob.
I said, we're hoping to put a little bit of a road down to the lake this year too. Because,
Yes.
Adam and Phyllis went with us down to the lake. It's beautiful down there. It's just pain in the butt to get to. And it's right on Bear Central.
And how deep is that lake?
We don't know. Adam's coming up with something with that too.
So
that'll be easy.
The pond that sits behind my property is just roughly over an acre, maybe acre and a half in size, but I think it's only about 2-3 feet deep.
Oh no, this is much deeper. I'm guessing it's probably 20 to 40 feet deep because it's also spread by springs. I paddled around the edge with the guys in the cabin, and every 60 or 70 feet, you see spring heads coming up under the water.
Yeah, so mine is spring fed as well. And then in the Copper River Basin, there is Willow Lake, which is one of the largest lakes along the Richardson Highway. That lake, I don't know how many acres large it is, but it's fairly large. It's only 6 feet deep at its deepest point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I asked.
It's not very
That's
deep.
not deep. You can, if you were taller than I am, you could walk across it and never go underwater. If I tried to walk across it, I'd have a foot over my head at least.
No, I know it's fairly deep because I've walked out with hip waders on, and while Adam and Phyllis were there, I got maybe 30 feet from the shore, and it was ready to come up over the top of my boots.
Oh,
and
nice.
Once you paddle out on the canoe about 60, 70 feet, you can't see the bottom anymore.
And there's fish in that lake?
Well, we've seen all small stuff, but I've been told by the prior owners that and neighbors that have been down there's trout down there, there's landlocked salmon in there, and other things in the lake. Nobody has caught any pike yet, so that's kind of a nice thing.
Yes.
Pike
Fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So we've got another question from Paula and Jason, who says, what happened that you didn't plan for when moving to Alaska? Adam and Phyllis?
I guess up here, I didn't realize how much snow you would actually get.
That's pretty common.
I knew I was ready for winter, I thought, but that first winter proved my thoughts to be wrong.
How did the snow compare to the snow back in Wisconsin?
I always joked about the snow in Wisconsin. When it snowed there, you moved it twice. So it would snow, you'd spend 4 hours on the skid steer moving the snow, and then that night the wind would come up and blow it all back into the driveway, except now it was hard, and you'd move it again. Here, we don't get wind in Willow. I mean, maybe 3 days a year.
Yeah.
And so that's not really a concern here. But that was a shock. And like many of us, I was completely addicted to Amazon Prime. And how I could order anything and have it the next day. There's no shot of that happening in Alaska. You order it 2 to 24 days is when things show up. So that was my biggest personal shock. Did you have anything?
No. I didn't have expectations, I guess. I was just kind of, well, let's go see what it's like.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How about for you, Rob and Sarah?
Go ahead, Rob.
I would say kind of like what Adam and Phyllis, shipping things, getting things here. The other big thing we had, it's kind of an issue more for Sarah than me, is finding quality furniture.
Yes.
Because we spent some good money on our first sofa, and it's not lasting.
It's not bitterly disappointing, but
it's the quality is not quite there for what we paid. That we do. The other big thing that it's more of a regret is not bringing my business trailer with us full of our stuff.
That was a mistake.
Because Sarah had a lot of good furniture. I had a lot of antiques that we got rid of.
Right.
We both were big into antiquing, before we even knew each other. And we had lots of collections. And some of that stuff really would have went well in this house.
It would have. And we knew we had this house as a potential living space. We didn't know what we were going to do with it.
Well, at first, this is what we were going to rent out. We were going to live in the cabin and rent this out. So
Yeah, even halfway through the winter, he's saying, well, we should move into the house. I said, but this cabin is so easy. It's so cozy. Although when we first got here, the surprise that I had, when we first looked at the property, the cabin was lovely. It was all clean and pretty. And it was, the real estate agent brought a lovely lunch with salmon and all kinds of wonderful Florida or Alaska things. And when I walked in the door,
When we were moving in,
it was not.
it looked like a bomb went off.
And it looked like he left everything he didn't know what to do with.
Yep.
And it was laying around. The thing I've learned is that anything that ever gets to a remote property in Alaska is still here.
It doesn't.
It never leaves.
Yep.
Hmm.
And it that can be said true also for properties that are in
Everywhere.
town. There is
Yes.
a property that I saw for sale before I bought my place. And it is right along the Glen Highway as you're leaving Palmer, I believe. And it is just a mess, just a complete mess. There's stuff everywhere outside the property. The pictures I saw from inside the property were a disaster, like a hoarder's dream come true. And still to this day, years later, that property still looks the same. All the junk is there and it's right in town, you know. So that's the thing, is that when you're buying property in Alaska, I think it is important to know that, like I said, you're going to inherit whatever was there on that property that the owners didn't take with them. And in most cases, that's quite a bit. And a lot of it you'll find is not useful things to you, and it wasn't probably useful to them either.
No,
And-
we're still finding stuff here.
Absolutely.
We haven't been through all the buildings yet. I mean, I'm still finding little engines here and there.
Yeah.
I found a bucket of beans. And that's what I've been feeding the chickens, and the chickens go nuts for it. So,
Oh, they
I mean,
love it.
but
Go figure.
I found a box. I was talking to Adam when he was up here last, about 200 yards from the back of the house, and it's full of old generators and sanders.
This is not a cardboard box. This is
It's a freezer.
a freezer. Yeah. A
Yeah.
large container full
That's-
of things. People in fairness and honesty, it's not that people are messy or lazy. It's that there's just no way to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah,
Or it's prohibitively expensive.
exactly.
Right.
It took them a lot to get it there, and it takes even more to get it out of here.
Exactly.
And that's something definitely to keep in mind.
Mhm.
I don't know that I had any real surprises when moving up here, but as you guys mentioned, the real estate, when I really sat down to look at property in Alaska, got serious about buying property here. I think a big surprise for me was how many realtors were not willing to work with someone from outside of Alaska. They wanted nothing to do. You were just a waste of their time. And even, I guess that's carried through then to when I got up here, is that a lot of people that have been living in Alaska for a long time, whether they were born here or moved here years or decades ago, won't really pay you the time of day until you have put in the work to show that you're going to stick around. And part of that is because they don't want to make friends with someone who's just going to pack up and leave the next year.
Right.
Right.
And up here, you will also have to be pre-approved, or they won't even take you. They won't take you anywhere. Even the real estate agent that we're actually kind of friends with, he said, "Yeah, unless you're pre-approved, don't bother.
Yeah,
they won't take you out."
And that's the other thing. When I bought my property, and you guys all bought about the same time. When I bought my property, the real estate market was a lot different than it is now. Now Alaska's booming again, and the prices have gone up. The availability of property has tightened up a little bit. And so the realtors really are in that market where they're like, we don't have the time for you if you're not pre-approved. And also the other thing is like when you're looking at real estate descriptions on the listing sites, be forewarned, they're not written in the same way that you're used to in the lower 48, where you get these nice glamorous descriptions of what you're looking at and you get wonderful pictures. In many cases, you don't get actual pictures of the property, or if you do, like Sarah said, you get beautiful pictures, but then the reality of it is quite something different. Or you get a picture that is like an aerial overshot, but doesn't really show you the property itself. And the descriptions are very lacking.
And that goes like all three channels here say, always step foot on the property.
Absolutely.
Right.
Always step foot on the property more than once if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we-
don't-
But we
don't
were
do
like,
it in the winter.
Yeah. Don't do it in the winter at all.
No, those little piles of snow that you see in the yard, thinking that they're nothing, might be hiding a broken down car, some old 55-gallon drums, lawnmowers, snow machines, and you don't know if it's as we became well aware. You really want to look at the proximity to rivers and swamps and flood zones, and muskeg is a big thing here, and you can't build on it. It's used to be a lake. So
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with what muskeg is, Adam, can you describe it?
it's until it's disturbed, it looks like a nice prairie without any trees or anything. And then you drive on it, and say alone you were standing 20 feet away from me. I could
Yep.
jump up and down and you would move opposite of me. Because when you fly over it, this muskeg, you can tell it used to be a lake. It used to be lakes everywhere. And once you kind of dig it up, it's like stinky mashed potatoes with too much water in it.
Yeah.
It's just, and if you break through it, you're gone forever.
Yeah,
Because
it
a
could be
lot
20, 30, 40 feet deep for all you know underneath of it.
Yeah, there was a story of someone who accidentally dropped a skid steer into one of those from a helicopter, and they went to recover it, and they ran a string with a weight on it down 100 feet, and they never touched the bottom. So it's gone forever.
is
Yeah.
that anything like a bog?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
basically
It's a lot like a bog, yeah.
Bog.
And
Yeah.
you just, in northern Minnesota, every year we'd lose someone that would fall through it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's unending. I mean, our moose hunt was 7 miles of that.
Nope.
So,
Yeah. And then also one other thing here that we lose people to every year are mud flats.
yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand what the mud flats are, but they're basically like quicksand, and it just sucks you right in, and then it holds you tight. You can't get free from it. And then the tide rolls in, whether that's from a, river or the inlets in the ocean, and you drown, and they'll come and try to, blast water down in there to get you free. But depending upon where you're at and what the conditions are around you, they may not be able to get you in time to get you out of those mud flats. So that's something, when you see mud flats,
Somebody
just stay away.
last year.
Yep.
Yeah, that was over by Hope, Alaska,
Yep.
and they were stuck in it. And before emergency crews could get there from Anchorage, the water covered them up,
Yeah.
and they recovered them the next day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that'll kill you up here, for sure.
So Adam, I'm going to let you answer Railroad Mike's questions real quick, and then we'll move on to another one.
Yeah, he's in reference here to my shirt. And honestly, I'm wearing the shirt because it is St. Patty's Day, and it's the closest thing I got to that. Phyllis has earrings on. But yeah, I if they were a real thing, I think they'd be great.
Right.
Yeah.
See, a shirt like that is perks of working at a thrift store.
Yeah, that's true.
So Happy has a question here. It says, my granddaughter is currently working in Canada, but plans to visit Alaska. What do you recommend must do? So for visiting Alaska, what are your top recommendations?
Chena Hot Springs.
on Denali.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the way we always did it, the cheapest, easiest way, if you want to see the most places, is we would rent an SUV. We'd get a $20 sleeping bag, some food, a $19 cook stove, and we would just travel. And you can save tons of money. It's really easy to go to Chena Hot Springs one day and Valdez the next, and the North Pole along the way. If that's what your goal is. If you want to see just one thing, then you can get a hotel. But
Right.
that was really a fun way to do it and inexpensive.
Yeah. And I agree with that. The first time I came to Alaska, I took a cruise up to Alaska and, took many excursions through the state. But I felt like I never really saw Alaska, because every port, every stop looked exactly like the last because they're all owned by the same shop owners, right? It's all corporate shop owners that own the same gift shop, the same t-shirt shop, the same restaurant, the same this, the same that. And so you see very little of the real Alaska. I didn't actually meet a single person who lived in Alaska on any of the excursions I took. They were from California or Colorado, Russia, but not Alaska. And so after doing that, I said, you know, when I go back to Alaska for a vacation, I'd rather find a small cabin to rent for the time that I'm there and find some outfitter to show me around. That to me would be more seeing the real Alaska than taking these pre-planned trips that put on by one of the cruise companies or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I avoid anything that's got an itinerary.
Mhm.
I'd rather, you know, if I'm traveling, Sarah tell you when we come up here, we flew by the seat of our pants and we had the best time ever.
We did.
Yeah.
No?
And one other recommendation I have is that if you're renting a car in Alaska, is to rent from a place like Alaska 4x4 that will allow you to take their vehicle on dirt roads, because a lot of the car rental places do not allow you to travel on dirt roads. So that means no Denali Highway, not going even into Denali Park sometimes, depending upon how far they'll let you go in.
Well, they say that.
They say that, but the cars still go there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But a big note on that, we rented a Toyota 4Runner, and I noticed it didn't quite handle right. And when we got to you're entering, what's the big sign? The Hall Road.
oh, yeah, it's
There's a big
Gateway to the Arctic or something.
Yeah, there's a big road there, and I decided to check out the vehicle. Well, as it turns out, in 50,000 miles, the tires had never been rotated, so they were completely bald on the outside, which is why it didn't correct right driving. And I said, I don't think we should do this. And Phyllis said, oh, well, it was on my bucket list. I said, okay, well, I guess we'll learn how to change a tire on the Hall Road. And we went for it anyway. Luckily, we didn't have any flats.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we
And
went.
speaking of flats, someone had mentioned Ward had just said one place to go see is McCarthy and see the Kennecott Mine.
Yes,
Yep, that's
it's awesome.
amazing.
It is an amazing place, and the Denali Highway is also an amazing road to take. But one thing about these roads is that they're not very well maintained, and so if you're going to take them, you take them at your own risk, because getting a flat tire is pretty common on those roads. You can't take, at least on the McCarthy Road, it's not advisable to take a tour bus type vehicle or a fifth wheel. Right? Is that what that's called when it hooks up to the back of your truck?
Yeah.
Yeah, fifth wheel, something like that, because the road is too windy. And if you do wind up having a breakdown on that road, it'll cost you a few $100s to get a tow truck back there to assist, and several hours out of your day before they can even get to you. So, something to keep in mind. True.
And the road to McCarthy is particularly sketchy. There's no guardrails.
Nope.
And the one side is straight down off the mountain, and you'll be going along and you'll get lulled into this sense of safety, and you'll be doing 60 miles an hour, and then oh my god, all of a sudden there's a huge mud hole that you got to drive through. So it's a beautiful place to go, but do be prepared.
I have tried to film on that road, and even with action cam mode on, which stabilizes your imagery, the video is like this the whole way, because that road is so rutted. So yeah, it's just a very rough road to be on for sure. So we have another question. Well, we had one other question, and I don't know if you guys have already done or not, but if you guys could put your channel links in the comment section for everybody so they can find your channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Sure. And then Kevin Albrecht says, is it true that Alaska subsidizes landowners living in Alaska? So I assume he's talking about the PFD.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, that would be the only way, because we still, depending on where you live and what borough you're in, you're still going to have taxes, just like anywhere else. But some places you don't pay that taxes.
That would be here.
Yep. And also there is no state tax in Alaska. However, and mostly no sales tax either. However, if you live in Anchorage, you'll find that that's not the case. Anchorage does tax you a little bit more. But the PFD is a fund that's supposed to come from the oil sales, and a certain percentage goes in there for every Alaskan who's lived here a contiguous 12 months or 1 full year and can prove it.
Yeah, it's actually calendar year. So it has
Yeah.
to be from January 1st to December 31st. And then there are some other stipulations that they put on you, like can't be a criminal, can't do this, can't do that. I mean, otherwise, it's fairly easy to qualify for the PFD, but that is the only subsidizing that Alaska offers. And last year, I think it was what, $1,300,
Yeah, I think
and
so.
that's
Just-
per person in your family, including children.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
and in the area where I live, I know of some individuals that's their only income for the year. They live off that PFD. Because they hunt off the land and they fish, and so they subsidize their living that way through federal subsistence hunting, which is different than the state subsistence in some regards. In some regards, the state hunting limits are greater than the federal hunting limits. Also, the federal government shuts down, and the state does too, but the federal government will shut down the federal subsistence hunting. So like the state might have caribou open, in multiple different game wards across the state, where federal, we only have certain little pockets that the federal qualifiers can hunt in. And they'll be like, nope, we shut down all federal subsistence hunting of caribou this year. So then we'd have to go apply for a state license to go hunt those.
Yeah.
There was another question I was thinking about there, but I lost it. Sorry. I need to be paying attention to the chat here. Also for everybody, I see your comments in the chat, and I appreciate everyone commenting. If I don't read your comment, it's because we are trying to answer as many questions about Alaska as possible, and to keep the conversation flowing, because of the fact that we are talking a bit more on individual topics than a normal live chat. I'm not going to go through every single comment and post it up on screen. But I do want to say thank you to everybody for being in here and posting your questions,
Yes.
because we really do appreciate it. Let's see here. JR is asking a full summer. I'm sure it wasn't a question to Russell, since he commented to him directly. But you guys want to explain what a full summer is?
Yeah. Well, we definitely had one this year. We went right from 1 week of having 52 below for 2 days in a row to literally 1 week later, it was in the 40s, and it was beautiful. I mean, right away, you want to starting your plants for the garden and doing all that, but we know it's
last year.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely know it's not true. A second and probably third winter are coming yet. So,
Well, we're in we did second winter.
yeah, we
already.
did second winter, and now we're into maybe full spring number 2, or maybe it's actually spring. We don't know.
I think it's second spring now.
Could be.
So we got a question here regarding the weather as well. It seems like Alaska's beautiful state, but somewhat hazardous because of the weather. And I would agree to that. I would definitely agree to that. Especially with the snowfall that we get in, each of our areas. You can get a massive snowfall of several feet overnight. And if you don't clear the snow off of your roof, it can cause stress on the timbers, and therefore, cause your roof to collapse in eventually. Also, if you don't have a source of heat, you'll freeze to death. Just being in a shelter isn't enough. You need to be able to provide heat. And I'd heard when I first moved up here, and I don't know how true it is, that Alaska requires you to have 2 sources of heat for your home. So in my cabin, I have an oil burner that uses heating fuel to heat the cabin. And then I also have a wood stove to heat my cabin with as well. And I know a lot of places similar to that, where they have either propane and a wood stove, or 2 sources of heat regardless. And I think that's just to make sure that if you run out of wood or you run out of heating fuel, hopefully you have the other to keep your cabin warm. Or if you have a power outage, you can heat with wood. So
And even to be up to code in with the state of Wisconsin, where we came from, you had to have 2 sources of heat.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even if one of them was, because I was the GC, the general contractor on our last house build, and I thought we were good to go. And he goes, "Nope, you only got 1 source of heat. You got to have 2." So I put 1 single 4-foot electric baseboard, and he's like, "All right, that's good." I'm like, "Well, that's not going to heat the house, but whatever. I got through it." So
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how that works for us because we've only got 1 source of heat up here, and that's wood. But I've got a lot of wood already ready.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Ed is here from Mountain Mariner Off Grid, and he said, Valdez got dumped on again yesterday and today. I believe yesterday they got about 1 foot of snow. Today, I think they're expected to get another 6 or 7 inches. And then it starts to clear up on Tuesday. But Valdez gets the most snow out of anywhere in Alaska, up to, I believe, 900 inches of snow, if I remember correctly, a year. And I have a video that I did maybe about 2 years ago, where I drove down about this time of the year, and what looks like mountains in the middle of the town is literally where they dump all their snow.
Right.
And the question had come up about, well, can't they just push all that snow off into the ocean? Well, due to environmental reasons, they don't do that, right? Because you'd be pushing in trash, you'd be pushing in, maybe any salt or rock they put on the road, anything like that, any petroleum that might be on the road. So for environmental reasons, they just pile it up and let it filter through the ground as it melts. But roof collapses are definitely a thing down there. Avalanches are another concern in this area of Alaska due to the mountains that surround the highway heading down to Valdez. We've had several already this year, avalanches that have shut the highway down. Earthquakes are another thing that we have quite frequently here in Alaska, which you guys know more about than I do. The area in which I live, I've not experienced an earthquake since moving here, but you guys have each experienced one, correct?
Yeah, I think Rob experiences more than we do too.
We get them like
We have a lot of them that happen up by Cantwell in Denali Park, where we got one that we can feel about every other week. And I'm to the point now that it's going to be at least a 4 for me to feel. Anything under that, we're not feeling so much unless it's really close, and then it shakes the house pretty good. Like the one we had the other day, the house went bump bump, it stopped, and on bump 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 and stopped.
Yeah.
And that was about 35. It was in Petersville, so about 40 miles from here. But it was like deep. The deeper they are, the more violent they are. That one was at 65 miles in depth. Wow. And it shook pretty good for a couple seconds, but it didn't last long. We've had a lot worse. We've had 6.5 up here, and we were in the cabin at that time, and it shook the cabin violently.
So one other thing about earthquakes in Alaska compared to earthquakes that you might experience elsewhere is that the tectonic plates here are this way. So when it's a quake, they're sliding this way, which means that we can have a earthquake, that's not very deep, and it could be a 3, it could be a 3.5, and it could be just a few miles away from you, and you might not really feel it because the ground is shifting this way. Where elsewhere, the ground is shifting this way, which is why you see more damage from earthquakes, say in California or Chile or places like that. It's just how the tectonic plates are colliding and sliding against each other during a quake. But Alaska does have its fair share.
We do have we got that too.
I heard something the other day that I think last year there was over 50,000 earthquakes in Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah, that's believable.
Yep. And Arlen has a question that says, does anyone have their Nenana Ice Classic tickets? If yes, what is the date you guessed?
I haven't got mine yet.
I didn't buy them.
I didn't either.
No.
It's going to be earlier this year, I bet, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like whenever it actually goes through, there's always like 9 people that pick that exact time and date. So I know it's
a million.
Right.
yeah. It's a pretty good purse, but split 25 ways, it doesn't matter that much.
No.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
JR is also saying the Dalton Highway is another highway that can be quite treacherous, but amazing to drive here in Alaska.
It is. Yeah, it's far better where they don't blacktop it. because they have this idea that if you blacktop it, it'll be good. But once it's blacktop, then they can't grade it. And so the dirt portions of it, they have nonstop 24/7 crews that are watering and grading the road. But where it's blacktop, they don't do that. So you end up with potholes that'll be like 4 feet deep. And I'm not exaggerating that at all.
Right.
No, it's pretty frightening.
Yeah. And Railroad Mike is saying that the road to McCarthy is built on old railroad grade. So bring
Yep.
spare tires, meaning bring more than one. And the Denali Highway is unforgiving and can eat tires as well. Tell people you're driving these roads. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
If you were to break down on these roads, depending upon the time of the year that you're on these roads, you might be there for longer than a day before you see somebody.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and depending upon where you pull off too. And the other thing is don't necessarily expect someone to stop and help you if you're broke down on these roads, because there are a few unsavory folks in Alaska who you might not want to stop and, you know, just see how things are going. Though the tendency, I think, for most of us is to try to help when possible,
Definitely.
but you could be stuck for quite some time.
Yeah.
And there's no cell signal in a lot of these areas either, regardless of what carrier you have. You're going to find that you might need, I don't have mine sitting right here, but I have a Garmin InReach that I take with me because even on the main highways here, I have a stretch of probably 80 to 100 miles where I have no signal.
Yep.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the further I get away from Anchorage, Palmer, the Matsu Valley,
Right.
the less traffic I see as well. Generally, I see more traffic heading into that side of the state than I do coming back this direction. So when I'm heading back home, I might see 4, maybe 5 cars coming the same direction as me over a course of several hours.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
The roads can definitely be, how shall we say, sparsely populated. So those of you who have asked for the links to the other 2 channels, there is Curmudge Inn's link for Rob and Sarah up near Chase, and there's Alaska Cut the Cords link for them, Adam and Phyllis, that are located in Willow. And here Railroad Mike is seconding what I just said about there's hardly any cell service. And if you get hurt, there's virtually no help coming for hours.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
I would definitely suggest, like you said, alone having the Garmin InReach, or like what I'm going to order, the new Magellan. It's a satellite mapping, but it has InReach built into it. The
Perfect.
reason I'm ordering mine is for trail mapping and such on snow machines, but
Yep.
you can take it hunting. Otherwise, those run off satellites and not cell reception. And then you've got something to back yourself up. But cell phones are useless.
Yeah.
All the way from the start of the Dalton, we went all the way to the Arctic Circle, and we never had cell reception.
Yeah.
Wow.
One thing about those InReach services to the satellite phones is you want to make sure that you turn it on, have it ping your location before you lose cell signal. Because if it doesn't already have a tracker on you and you've lost signal, that InReach isn't going to locate you either. Even though it's satellite, it still needs to initiate the beacon basically while you're in reception, and then you can lose signal and it can track you anywhere.
Yeah. I learned something fun about those too, because apparently with an InReach, you have to pay for every text message and every message coming in. Well, I didn't know that. And my buddy went on a caribou hunt, and once I realized I could text him, I'm texting away. And he was like, "Yeah, you probably cost me about $500 in text messages there." He had no
my.
idea. He didn't tell me that. So,
Yikes, that's a lot.
yeah.
So Ward has a question about when did we all move up here to Alaska?
Oh, what's
And
funny
this
is
is funny.
all 3 of us, all 3 groups here, moved up within like a month or so of each other.
Yep, because mine was August 26th of 2021.
We
Yep,
were
we got
June,
here. Go ahead, Phyllis.
we were June 14th, 21.
And we got here June 10th of 21.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's
That's when we got to Alaska.
that's when we
Officially,
visited.
no, that's when we moved here.
Not June,
No, August.
August.
I haven't had a drink yet.
Maybe you need
Jerry
to.
needs a
Maybe
frying
that's the
pan.
issue.
I mean, I was warm. I had to go change that shirt. I forgot how warm that thing is. That's a lot of people. Adam and Phyllis know, but I used to do medieval reenactments. I used to do LARPing and stuff like that. So that's what I put that on with my kilt, and I forgot how warm that thing is.
Yeah. And if you don't know what LARPing is, it's live action role play.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And Arlen has another question that says the best way to determine if there's zero property tax in a given area, is it by borough, township, or state? Well, I will tell you that the area in which I live in Alaska does not have any property tax, sales tax, income tax. There's no income tax throughout the state. But it also means I don't have services available to me. So there's no full-time fire department. The medical clinics in the area only run on limited hours, meaning they close about 4:30 in the afternoon. So if you get hurt in the evening, you're being flown or taken by ambulance across the state. It also means that we have state patrol officers here. I think there's 3. There might be 5, but 2 of those are game warden type officers.
Oh, yeah.
And the others are true state patrol officers, but they're managing an area about 500 square miles or greater, basically from just north of Valdez all the way to Paxton or beyond, and then to Eureka, and then over by Toke or Salina. So they have a huge area. They're not always on duty. I mean, there's always someone on duty, but overnight, the likelihood of getting somebody to come out is even harder. So you're really dependent upon bush justice out here, which means everyone's looking out for themselves and doing what they need to protect themselves, which means that you just don't go wandering onto someone's property here, because you'll find yourself in some harm's way, most likely. But also, not having that property tax means that there's also no building codes, no regulations as to what I can do out here on my property. There's no government body telling me I can't do something.
Right. And that's like where we are. I mean, we're a little bit more remote than Alone is with no roads, but we have property taxes. Granted, it's not a lot. I mean, it's under $200 a year. And I still don't feel why we're getting that taken from us, because we have no services whatsoever. I think that's the Matsu Borough is why we get charged for it. Where I don't think we're in Matsu Borough. No, I don't feel about theirs.
Really, the only service we have is the train.
And then we have to pay for that anyways. But
We have to pay for going in and out of the train.
yeah, because a lot of people don't realize the train is actually state owned.
It
A lot of
is.
people don't realize that.
No. Okay.
It is a resource, though, one way or another, because it's our transportation
Mm-hmm.
for us and everything.
Cranky Aunt Linda's asking, who had the most snow this winter?
That'd be alone.
I
Probably.
think I'd be alone.
Probably me. So at one point I had 54 inches on the snow pole. And one thing to keep in mind is it would snow and then it'd warm up a day or so and it'd compact or melt down and then snow more. And then, so we all had probably a fair amount of snow this winter. But the highest total at one given point was probably me.
Yeah. I think the highest we got was 36 or 39.
Something. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, we got to about 48 inches, but that's, as it's compacting, because up here it compacts quickly because we're a little higher elevation, a little warmer than you guys, both groups.
Oh, you're much warmer. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that. Like when they came up here, last month of February with Matt and Sid, it was -40 down at your place.
No, we had -52 that morning.
No, that morning was negative when you came up here.
Yes.
And we were at the house. We were -12.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That elevation makes a gigantic difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have those negative temps, those severe negative temps, negative 52, negative 40, is it generally in your area of the state? Is it generally just a day that you might experience that, or do you have that for a prolonged period of time and then it starts to warm up again?
What we experienced this year, the way it started was kind of weird. We had a week of negative 25 below every single morning when I'd get up. I mean, exactly the same temp. And then it'd be mild for a few days. And then the next week we had negative 32 for almost every day of the week until the weekend, and it warmed up a little bit. And then we got into the brutal cold, and the negative 50s, that was only 2 days. And then it warmed up significantly, even by that Sunday, because that was the weekend of the Winter Carnival. And that Saturday morning, I mean, it had warmed up to like negative 20, but that was pretty cold for being outside doing that. And then by that Sunday, it was probably a positive 20 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's not real long stretches, but they last about a week at a time.
So the first winter that I lived here, from basically November 1st to March 1st, there were only a handful of days, I want to say about 5 days, that were above zero. Other than that, the average was between negative 20 and negative 30 degrees. And for about 2 weeks during the coldest part of January, it was negative 40 to negative 60 degrees for 2 weeks straight.
My.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then you guys also mentioned that you don't really have a whole lot of wind there in Willow.
No.
But here the winds can get as high as, on average, they're about 35 miles per hour. And then they can get as high as about 50, depending upon, what storm front is blowing through. Which is one of the reasons I'm really glad that I had all the trees taken down from around the cabin. Because one of my biggest fears was that the winds were going to knock those trees down onto the roof of the cabin, creating some significant damage. They say clear them just for the fire danger, so you have that fire break. But for me, it was more the wind I was afraid of than the fires. While there are fires in this area of Alaska, you guys also experience more fires where you guys live also.
Yeah, there's been some. It was before we moved up here is when the Sockeye fire was, but that actually went all the way from Point Mac, which is right down by the ocean, all the way north of us, probably 6-7 miles. And they talk about making fire breaks and stuff. It's pretty irrelevant. We've had fires jump Big Lake in Big Lake, Alaska, which is the name says it all. And if it'll jump that, there's not much of a fire break is going to do. When you get the spruce embers, they tend to float way up in the air. They'll go 100 feet up and travel with the wind. So the wind makes a bigger difference for the fires up here.
Absolutely.
The prevailing winds will push it a certain direction.
Well, one other thing too, I don't know what you guys have in the way of variety of spruce types over there, but black spruce looks dead. It has a lot of dry, brittle foliage on it, where the white spruce and the Sitka spruce, things like that, tend to be a bit greener, more oily. But regardless, the other thing about fires here in Alaska is that you guys also have on your side of the state more beetle kill in the trees than this side of the state does.
We do. And to mitigate some of the fire hazard around here, I have been removing beetle kill for at least 1,000 feet all the way around the house. It's all state land behind us, and you can cut the down stuff anyway for firewood. And I'm removing every single one of those that I can. Everywhere out here. You got to get rid of it.
I was thinking about the beetle kill just this week, in fact, and I was wondering if it's the prolonged severe negative temperatures that this area receives as to why we don't have the beetle kill here, right? That it's enough to permeate the wood of the tree, kill off the larvae, kill off the beetle, and stave off the dying of the trees here, where you guys are a little bit more temperate in your climate than I am here.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case and you can avoid it altogether, because I can't imagine what this place used to look like, before all the beetle kill, because right now as it stands, we can only see maybe a dozen live trees from the house.
Oh, wow.
Where I mean, my woodshed, the chicken coop, everything I built from standing dead beetle kill.
Yep.
But as far as a resource for firewood, we're running out. And there aren't any, the live ones are starting to come up, the little trees,
Mhm.
but we're left with pretty much straight birch. We don't have any black spruce here.
And what do you have, like, if you had to guess your ratio of deciduous trees like birch, aspen, cottonwoods compared to conifers, pine, spruce, things like that, do you have more deciduous trees or more coniferous trees on your side of the state?
Mm,
If you're driving down the highway, what do you see more of?
Popple.
I
Or birch.
probably deciduous trees.
Birch.
But 5 years ago, maybe it didn't look that way because all the spruce are dead.
Yep.
So it's hard to say. We've got some areas, you'll have pockets where there's cottonwood, which cottonwood isn't really good for anything. You don't burn it, you don't do anything with it, but they are some magnificent trees. We've seen, especially down by Palmer, you'll see a lot of those that are like a 4-foot diameter. They're just massive, beautiful trees. They're not good for anything, but they're nice to look at, I guess.
Well, you can actually make a nice wall panel. So if the cabinet's down the trail from us, that has a lot of cottonwood on the inside, and it can actually make really nice lumber for finish work.
Right.
Oh,
But it has to dry extremely well before you can use it. It will take 4 or 5 years to dry a 1-inch board where it's not warped. You're constantly going to turn the painting. When you sticker it, it's going to constantly be switched around constantly.
Okay.
It's bad.
Yeah. See, and on this side of the state, even though it's more mountainous over here where I'm at, there is a lot of marsh on this type or this side of the state. So we have a lot of black spruce. There's more spruce here than there are deciduous trees, which is why I asked about when you're driving down the highway, what do you typically see? Right? Because here, when you drive down the highway, all you see is spruce trees with a random aspen or cottonwood. We have no birch on this side of the state.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't have, even though we're right next to Canada, we don't have maple trees. It's really just the 4 trees. We have white spruce, black spruce, cottonwood, and aspens. And the cottonwoods are not your cottonwood that you're used to in the lower 48. We call them cottonwoods here, but they're actually
Poplar.
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 Yeah, poplar. But they're not even like the poplar that you have in the lower 48 where they grow up real tall, they live 20 years and they die. It's a poplar variety is what they have here, but they're a nuisance. They're a weed. They spread like wildflower or wildfire, and they're just invasive and just take over everything. But we do have more spruce here for sure.
Yeah, some get huge. And there is a nice thing about them. They do have a nice smell.
They do.
When they bud and you get a lot of them around it, it smells like freshly washed cotton sheets.
Oh, that's good to know.
I can't explain the smell. It's just when you walk out, like here, we have them down on the creek and down by the river. Down by the river, that's all you see. Especially once you go across the railroad tracks, and it smells amazing down there. And only at certain times of year, that's all you smell.
The buds are actually very medicinal also.
Yes.
The buds are from the poplar.
Yep.
I'll have to look into that because I definitely have a lot of them here. But I will tell you, the aspen don't smell great. Aspen have a horrible smell to them.
Yeah.
They're the worst smell.
Yeah.
So Karen's asking, she says, I want to take an Alaskan cruise. Any recommendations? I've been on Princess and it was nice, but I still would recommend flying into Alaska and staying at an Airbnb, renting a car and going seeing your own way, or camping if you can.
Yep. Yeah, I've never taken a cruise, but I was in the Navy, so I had 4 years of cruises. So I'm not really into it that much. But as far as getting to see all of Alaska, or as much as possible, the camping and driving around yourself, and then that way you can control it too, right? So if you drive to Valdez and you're like, man, I'd like to stay there another day, you can. Where if you're part of a cruise group, when it's time to go, you got to get on the bus. So
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm like Adam. I've never done a cruise ship.
I've never done
I'm
a
a
cruise.
sailor. I lived aboard my boats for years. I cruise that way. Like I said earlier, I don't like itineraries.
I'm the same way. I want to do my own thing.
That's
So Sonia's
be-
asking if tsunamis would be an issue if there was a big one. So yeah, there was an earthquake, what? I want to say last summer that was like a 6 point something off of the Aleutian Islands. They put out a tsunami warning, expecting to hit the coast of Washington, Oregon, and California within, a couple hours or later that day. It never even created more than a foot high wave out of the earthquake, despite it being like a 6.0 on the Richter scale. But they can definitely be an issue.
well, I think the big earthquake that hit Alaska was like 60 years ago.
1964. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that actually, if you go to Seward, to the we call it the Liquid Zoo, the aquarium that they have there, which is really awesome. You can see the remnants of the damage from the tsunami that completely wiped Seward off the map. And there's chunks of concrete that are like 8 foot by 8 foot that were just ripped right out of the ground.
Yep.
So yeah,
And they actually
Is it-
moved the town of Valdez about half a mile one direction because of that earthquake, because it sunk the land so far down where the town originally set. And also the fear of if there was another quake in that area due to the fault line there, that it would just take the town out completely.
yeah. And on your way to Valdez, they have these cool signs alongside of the road that say tsunami evacuation route.
Yeah.
So they do take it quite seriously up here.
They absolutely do take it quite seriously there. So I've got a question from Dawn, who's asking, is there anything anyone regrets about making their move to Alaska? And I know that the one answer you're going to hear unanimously from all three of us is we wish we had done it sooner.
Right, right,
Yes.
100%.
Definitely.
Yep. I have no regrets about how I did it.
no.
But
Well,
definitely wishing I'd done it a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was going to say something too about, I get a lot of comments on my channel about living in Alaska is for young people. You really want to be in the spryest years of your life when you move up here, especially when you're living off grid, such as I am. But I will tell you that there are more people that are 30 plus years my age that are in way better physical condition than most people my age are. They're, hardy, spry, fit people well into, their 90s up here. And it's pretty amazing, So it's all a matter of taking care of yourself for sure, but you got to have the right mental attitude, I think, also to overcome obstacles and adversity in the way of living up here.
And I think the lifestyle itself kind of affords a lot more physical activity in order to get through your day, physical activity and hardship, which I think actually keeps you in quite a bit better shape than like my last job driving around a car in sales. So
that's exactly where I was going, Adam. The lifestyle is healthier.
Yep.
Yeah.
And talk about age. There's me.
Yeah. And you're doing just fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing just fine. No, I'm doing. Granted, I could not do it without Rob, my partner here.
She forgot my name.
Crime.
Sorry.
She was just trying to figure out which name she wanted to use at that point.
Yeah.
I am going to put my screen on hold for just one moment. I need to adjust the light in here, which means I have to cover up a window. So give me one moment. I'll be back. I'll let you guys talk about what the fuel cost is up there is like at the moment.
We're the wrong ones to ask me.
Right.
Feel very much.
No,
Adam?
but yeah.
Last time I was
Adam
up here, I know I saw fuel. It was around 340, but I think it's gone up since then. So I'll let you
And
chat with
the other thing about fuel is for us, transportation, getting the fuel from town to here involves
Increases
the
us.
train. So it
Agreed.
increases our fuel costs. We have to get barrels and have the gas pumped into the barrels or the diesel or whatever, little of each, and then brought up on what's called a tundra truck, which is a great resource, but it is a little pricey. There's a minimum fee, and we try to make it so we're never under the weight of the minimum. It doesn't make any sense to
Answer
with it.
this.
more.
Um,
So
as far as fuel costs go, oddly enough, I work for a fuel delivery company,
Indeed.
Fisher's Fuel, and the price varies daily because we set our prices and we're given the prices every day. So it varies daily, and it also varies a lot depending on where you live, right? So if you can get to it easily with a fuel truck, then it's not so bad. But if you live somewhere where it has to be flown in, sometimes it's up to $20 a gallon. So I would say right now it's probably $3.49, I think, a gallon for gasoline, and a little bit cheaper for diesel. So it's not too bad.
So where I live, the gas is always about $1 to $1.25 more a gallon than it is in the Matsu Valley.
Wow.
But I have a question regarding what you just said. Why is the gas cheaper in Delta Junction than it is in Fairbanks? And why is Fairbanks even cheaper than where I live, considering it's equidistant to either one from Anchorage?
I'd say all fuel in, except for like your area, most of the fuel in the valley, it comes from Marathon Petroleum.
Uh-huh.
And it's, people have a misnomer, right? Because all the oil comes from Alaska. We ship every last drop of it out of the state to get refined in Texas or wherever, and then it gets barged back up here. Some of it also can go over to Canada. And I think your prices most likely are shipping through Canada.
Mm.
And so that's changing it, and we don't have any control over that. But to get to Fairbanks, it literally, we send a truck hauling double tankers 3 times a week, and that's just one truck for Crowley that we actually contract for, and we haul, that's like 30,000 gallons 3 times a week that we haul, and they have probably 10 other trucks doing the same thing. So all of Fairbanks's fuel comes from Anchorage. So it has to get trucked all the way from Anchorage. And if you figure trucking costs 20 to 30 cents per gallon, that adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense then why the Canada thing, which I had not taken into consideration before, why Delta Junction would be cheaper than Glen Allen.
Yeah.
Delta Junction is north of Glen Allen by about 160 miles, I believe. And
Yeah.
it's right off the Tok cutoff. Tok is right there by the Canadian border. So they would come across Canadian border, take the Tok cutoff, drop fuel in Delta Junction, and then have to head south to Glen Allen. So it's that extra distance between Glen Allen and Delta Junction, which would account for some of the cost. But also the additional cost is because there's only really 2 fuel stations in Glen Allen,
Right.
both privately owned. One is known as the Hub, and they basically own a lot of the businesses in Glen Allen, and they can determine the price as they see fit. So
I
that's
think
one of. Go ahead.
That's a lot of what goes on there in Glen Allen, because we also have a station in Glen Allen, but it's not a place where you can get gasoline. The only pump that we have is for diesel or heating fuel. So everything that we take there, we deliver it out to, I call it the DMV, but we deliver to Tok and we deliver to those areas, but we don't have a regular fuel station. And we've talked about doing it, but in Glen Allen, you have permafrost. So
Yes.
there's no underground tanks. So all your tanks have to be above ground. And there's quite an expense associated with doing something like that.
And one other thing too, talking about expense and above ground and permafrost and things like that, is propane out here is a lot more costly than it is if you're near the city. Propane out here rivals the cost of gas. It's roughly last I checked, and this was last summer, it was like $5.25 or $5.50 a gallon for propane. And then you have to realize that propane gels up, it actually boils at negative 40 degrees. And so if that's your alternative heat here is propane, and your tank is outside, you have a yard bomb sitting in your property, at negative 40, you're not going to get great flow of that propane, and
No.
you might not have any heat coming into your cabin.
Right.
So that's
And a lot of the propane, even the 2 propane trucks that we have in Glen Allen, we have to bring them to Wasilla to fill them
Mercy.
and then deliver. So
Wow.
So I'm scrolling through looking for some other questions, but as I do this, I want to say thank you again to everybody who's in the live stream chat, whether you're chatting or you're just listening today to the live stream. We want to thank you all for being here, and we're going to keep going as long as you guys, have questions for us and stuff. This is our plan for today, is to be here for you guys to answer your questions.
Yeah,
So
and Mike is absolutely right there.
what Railroad Mike says, yeah. But justice is very real and not for the faint of heart. You absolutely need to have protection and absolutely heed private property and no trespassing signs here. And you also need to have it pre-programmed into your brain that if you're going to carry a firearm here, that you intend to use that firearm at some point in your existence here in Alaska. Whether that's to protect yourself from that 2-legged predator that we just mentioned in Mike's comment here, or it is that you're protecting yourself from wildlife, whether it's a moose, a bear, a wolf, as you mentioned, what have you. At some point you might need to, use that firearm, and you have to be able to sleep with yourself at night if you do.
Yes.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
So just I'm scrolling through some more here, so bear with us. Let's see here. Remember, if you have a question, put a thumbs up in front of your question, and we will answer your questions as much as we can. And Ed is asking, finished trapping for the year yet? I'm sure he's talking to Gary over at Ignomatic Witchin, who is another great channel to watch here. So if you're into trapping at all, his channel is great for that. You can get lots of information and see everything there has to do with trapping, and especially in his neck of the woods, which is up closer to Fairbanks.
He's way past Fairbanks.
Yeah, way past Fairbanks. Lee has a question that says, Sarah, are those locks natural or do you curl your hair?
This is natural. Yeah. It's a natural color and it's the natural curl.
It's beautiful.
Nobody ever asked me that.
Beautiful. I'm jealous of both of your hairs because it's real long.
Your hair isn't natural. Yes. You keep cutting it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Actually short.
So Gary is saying that currently he just has some wolverine and wolf sets out there. Been an odd winter. The animals seem to have moved south before the negative 70s hit. Only lynx have returned at this time. So this winter here was definitely a much more mild winter than we had the last 2 winters. It was either last year or the year before where they said it was the most snowfall on record for Alaska, which seemed odd to me. But also it's kind of good that it's a lighter winter this year, because we're hoping that it brings back the numbers of the caribou and the moose that were severely impacted last year by the harsh winter conditions.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, Gary sent his wolves down here, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're all over the place down between here. Chase, up by Ed, even though by Adam and Phyllis, there's a lot more activity now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Ed's asking, so many big lakes nationwide, how come there isn't any named enormous lake?
There might be.
There might be
long lakes too. If you look up Long Lake, Alaska, you're going to find about 5 or so of those throughout the state.
Definitely.
Name that lake up by you, Ed.
Right.
Jeff is saying, if I would move to a wilderness area, I'm an avid hunter, fisherman. How is the hunting as to your own meat supply hunting? How is the
Mine's-
hunting? Can you supply your own? Can you feed your family for a year off of what you can hunt here?
Yeah, I could.
It depends on how much time you have to put into the hunting.
Yeah,
Depends
the
on the
hardest part, like, me, I work 50 hours a week. So hunting is when I get a moment. But if I were just up here off grid, able to support my family, yeah, I could. One moose would support us for probably 2 years.
Yes.
A moose is a lot of meat. And even if I do get one, I plan on splitting that with someone. So just because there's no point in shooting a moose a year when we can't possibly eat a moose a year.
No, in our area, I have hunted twice now, 2 years in a row, but because we're so hilly and there's no trails, it's hard for me to get to the areas where the moose are. I mean, they'll come by the house, but at the wrong times. They're here all winter, or they'll be here like a day or two before hunting season, taunting me. Then they vanish. Or they'll show up on trail cam, in the wee hours in the morning.
Yep.
But if we could get one, that's definitely more than enough food for us for a year. Like Adam said, it's 2 years, but we also, like them, intend to, gift over, excess, which would be like half.
Yeah.
And one other program that might seem a bit odd to someone who's outside of Alaska, but is actually makes a lot of sense here, is the roadkill moose program. So if a moose gets hit by a vehicle and you're on a list to receive that carcass, you have 4 hours to make it to the carcass and to transport it back to your property for processing. But in order to be on the list to receive that opportunity, you have to sign up with one other household. So it has to be a total of 2 households that are in close proximity to one another, I believe, right? You and your neighbor. And so that you can share that meat, because as they mentioned, one moose is a lot of meat and they don't want that meat to go to waste.
Right.
No, Alaska does not play when it comes to the game.
No.
You do it right or you don't do it at all,
Right,
because you're
but-
going to be in a lot of hot water.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
The
And
rail-
go ahead.
the railroad has a bit of a roadkill issue. Moose are notoriously uncooperative. And we tried to sign up for the roadkill
But
kind of
because it's just us
situation.
here.
We couldn't get on. No one else is in close enough proximity to us for us to qualify.
Yep. And then Arlen has a question that says, is FEMA the best resource for Alaska's 100-year flood zone maps? How about best source for topographical maps? I have found the USGS website the best place to get those topographical maps. And they will also have on there the flood zones, showing you where a 100-year flood zone is, as well as other, water sources. So it'll show you where there is a tendency to be some standing water, as well as creeks that are seasonal and things like that. I use the USGS maps.
Shh, dogs. Hold on a second. We gotta let the dogs out.
That woke Zeus out. Sorry, I've got bread going, so I had to go over and check on it.
No worries.
Well,
No
we
worries
just
whatsoever.
Ooh, somebody's out there.
Sid?
So Boot Knife is saying, I want to see a lake named Water Lake or Wet Lake. Could that be a thing?
I don't know what they do. Just pull. Turn around.
Pulled in and turned around.
We just had
Oh,
some
you got-
time machines turn around in our yard.
Oh, that's always fun.
Nobody
No.
turns out in our yard.
Just
Sorry.
me.
Right? Maybe a snow machine or two once in a while.
Oh no, they don't come up our
No,
trail
not up
anymore.
our trail.
No, that's good.
No.
So JR is saying to see my video number 22, and I just froze again. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. If not, I'll talk with the there we go.
There you
You're
are.
back.
JR is saying to see my video number 22 for very good information on buying land in Alaska and moving hints. However, I just did go through and take out all of the episode numbers, so now they're no longer numbered. But the name of the video that you're looking for is "Don't Buy Land in Alaska Before Watching This Video." So if you're looking to buy land, that's a good place to start for sure. Give you a lot of helpful information. And thank you for that, JR. And Lee has another question for everybody. Anyone know what those yellow looking pine trees are that I always see while watching Lost Lakes channel up in Ontario, Canada?
It's large.
So, yeah, larch. Also called tamarack.
Yeah, I was going to say tamarack.
Large.
Yep. So I mentioned it in a video shortly after my Denali video where I had taken a trip up to Fairbanks and I talked about it because I had never seen larch trees or tamarack trees before. It's not something that's very common in Colorado where I came from. And so for those of you who are not familiar, they lose their needles in the winter time.
Yep.
So I thought the trees were sick when I first saw them because I'd never seen yellow pine before.
There's actually a guy, if you go down to by the Three Bears on Pittman in Wasilla, there's a guy out there selling them occasionally. His saplings about that tall.
Oh,
I think he's like $10, $15. I'm half tempted to grab about a half a dozen. I'm planting them up here.
Their little pine cones they look like little tiny brown roses. They're great for
and,
crafts and
Yeah.
and people used to use them a lot for building. Because they're perfectly straight when they grow and they stay a pretty uniform size.
Yep.
So they're pretty useful.
So Tar Heel Ariel says, what has been your scariest moment living in Alaska? No power, bear threat, etc.
Well,
I'll let you guys go. What'd you say?
yeah. No, we're off grid, so the no power thing doesn't bother us at all.
Nope.
Doesn't apply here.
No.
Yeah, so I am the only one who is actually on grid, and I do lose my power all the time. All the time. I have a power outage at least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week. The longest I've been without power is 24 hours. But to me, it's not a big deal because I have very few electronic things in my cabin. So again, the backup heat of having the wood stove means if the oil burner can't operate due to no power, no big deal. I have 4 chest freezers that I store most of my meat in and things like that. And those chest freezers will hold their temperature for a few days, up to a week. I think it was 7 to 10 days, and it was still negative 15 in the freezers before things start to actually thaw out. And then the only other thing I have that runs on electricity is my computer and my lights. But, you know, if the power goes out, the power goes out and doesn't bother me.
No, for us, the scariest thing, or for me anyway, and I've gone bear hunting and flying and all that stuff, would be the flooding. Would 100% be the unpredictability of the flooding. And that's kind of scary, especially when it lasts for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
That would be our really be careful when you're looking at houses. My next one, if I can't see a river from a telescope, that's close enough.
And I can vouch for Adam because I've been down his driveway or his road and driveway when they were having a small flood. I can't imagine what it was like, you know, for the last 2 summers with all the rain that we had. I couldn't imagine. I can't. It's crazy.
There's been a lot of mitigation that's been helpful, though.
Yes. Oh, we're working on it constantly.
Much better than it.
Yeah,
was.
trying to get it to flow around instead of through our yard. But I learned a couple of cool things. Is that ducks' eyes glow in the dark. They're reflective of flashlights, because there was a few weeks where I had to walk to the end of the road with my headlamp, and you would see ducks on my road. And they actually float right under my house, which is kind of neat. We had ducks underneath our house during that big flood.
And we had salmon. We were chasing
Yeah,
salmon.
we had salmon in our yard. You guys can't say that. So
Oh.
No, I definitely cannot say that. But I would say my scariest thing is the moose on the roads. That's been the scariest thing I've had. I've had bear walk right up to the cabin. They walk around the cabin all the time. I never see them. The animals move so slowly and in the dark of night that even the security cameras don't pick them up because they're like sloths as slow as they move when they're out on their own, just lumbering around. But the moose on the roads, especially when the sun is just at that level where everything is the same color tone, same grayscale, you really can't see them. They don't have any eye shine, and you're traveling at 65, 70 miles an hour. And before you know it, there's a moose right there. So that would be the scariest. And the fact that there's no guardrails on the roads for the vast majority of the places, and places where you would expect them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
and for us, we don't go to town enough to worry about that. But I mean, I say for me at least, because I do all the driving, it's the other drivers that scare me the most.
Especially in Wasilla.
Yeah.
Right, going down parks, before you get down here where all where the road splits, where it's 2 lanes here, 1 lane here, and they're passing you from both directions.
Oh, yeah.
I'll sit up here and play with the bears all day long.
Yeah.
I know what I got to deal with the bears. He either wants to chew on me, he don't want to chew on me. With these drivers, it's like, are you going to drift over here? Are you going to drift over there? No.
Yep. That's very true. Speaking of driving, Jeff Stout is asking, do they allow ATVs on the roads, rural or even, in town?
Talkeetna, definitely.
Oh yeah, they're all over.
I'd say anything except for like the Parks Highway or the Glen. You can ride anywhere you want, and there's always a trail on each side of the road. So if you don't want to be on the road, that's the one big shocking thing is back home, nobody rides dirt bikes. There's no trails for them. Up here, dirt bikes are the hottest thing.
And they're ripping alongside the highway.
Yeah, they're ripping along 60 miles an hour along the highway. So yeah, you can ride pretty much anywhere you want to go.
So here, there's only really one major road in the area. I mean, other than the Glen Highway, but other than that, we have the Richardson Highway. And there's no trails on the side of that road. It pretty much is a 20-foot drop off, and then it's just, marsh and whatever. So in the wintertime, snow machines will use the side of the road in that ditch to traverse along. But you don't really see a whole lot of quads or four-wheelers or anything like that. No dirt bikes here. And really, it's just the wintertime. We have a lot of snow machines.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. But if you're on the back roads, the dirt roads and what have you, you can do whatever you want on those roads. Just be aware that while there is a speed limit on those roads, that is usually not followed. It's treated as a suggestion very lightly.
Yep.
So you do that at your own risk. Here. Grizzly Acres Homestead has said no regrets, except should have done it 20 to 30 years sooner. I'm nearly 50 and love it here. That's exactly how we all feel too.
Yep, I hear you. Yeah, I know who Grizzly Acres is. Somebody I know. They're based out of Talkeetna, and yeah, definitely. But the way I look at it too is if I would have got here 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting next to the woman I'm sitting next to that I love in the door.
Oh,
very sweet.
That was so sweet. He got the romance points today, didn't he?
You got all the ones that I lost, Rob.
Oh, and Adam had 3 looks, guys, and they were most of them before we started.
And Ed's asking Adam if that was the lake that you duck hunt on, aka your front yard.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I absolutely can't stand the taste of duck, so I'm never going to shoot one.
You're not cooking it right.
Oh,
Right?
right.
But it also depends upon what duck you eat. You may have eaten the wrong duck. So some ducks will have a very fishy taste to them because that's all they're eating. Other ducks that are eating weeds, that grow up along the banks and what have you, have a much sweeter, delicate flavor. If you like red beef, red meat, you'll like duck if it's done right. And duck is my absolute favorite. Absolutely.
Uncle Muscovy.
I don't
Yeah,
know
with
what
all the ducks. Yeah.
Peking duck is made of, but I loved.
I don't know. I've only shot one, and I was so proud of it. I was like 14, and I cooked it up, and I was so positively disappointed in how that tasted.
Oh.
I have never shot another duck.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Well-
said, it depends upon the duck species and what they're eating for sure.
Okay.
Yep. So Ed over at Mount Mariner off Grid, Alaska, who says, I had a golden eagle land on my cliff once, a huge bird, much larger than bald eagle.
Wow.
Depends. I have seen a bald eagle that was about 4 feet tall. I saw a bald eagle on a deer that was in the riverbank, and it was a mature deer, and that eagle was as big as that deer was.
No.
So I have seen some massive bald eagles. So I think it just depends upon the eagle itself. But yeah, the golden eagles are pretty amazing nonetheless, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
And let's see here.
Hey, Ashley. I just seen you came in.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi,
Nice to see
Ashley.
you here. Scott has a question, says, hi, my partner Karen and I are looking at visiting Alaska in October this year and would love to be able to meet up with some of you Alaska YouTubers. Would any of you be interested? Depends upon where you're planning on being, I would assume, as
And
part of
October
that.
was hard for us to get out.
It is a little hard.
But we do rent our cabin.
Yeah. You might like it.
Self promotion, sorry.
Yeah. You might
Yep.
like it. It might be too remote.
So the Curmudge Inn is actually an inn. They do have an extra cabin that you can stay in. It's a very beautiful little cabin. But getting up there means you're taking the train up their way, and then you're taking a quad, depending upon the time of year, or a snow machine to get to their cabin.
It's a mile uphill.
Yep.
Both ways.
Like walking to school.
No, it's only uphill to get there. Trust me. I know. I've gone both directions.
Mhm.
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
All right, we got another question here. Dawn is asking, I can't find the thumbs up, but she put it in the little wave symbol here. Can I ask, at your relationships, did you have a partner before moving, and what happens if and when you get mad at each other? Rob and Sarah, this is for you.
Okay.
We've been together about 5 years now, 6 years now, and we've had 2 arguments that lasted about 5 minutes. Neither one of us are the type to hold
No.
hard feelings
Grudges.
against one another. We would rather fix whatever the problem is immediately
Mhm.
and talk about it. And the big thing is you need to talk about it. When
Yeah.
you live where we live and you don't get along,
It's
and
not
it-
going to
it's
work.
not going to work out, and something bad's going to happen, you make sure it works. And sorry to tell you, I mean, if one of us has any kind of issues, the other one can sense it really fast,
Really.
and the
Without
other one will
you
ask,
can
well,
look
what
at
is
my
wrong?
face.
Yeah, I can just look at her and tell whether she's hangry or if something's
Yeah.
on her mind or if she's just spacing out on me.
Mhm. And I have lots of relationship practice. I was married for 52 years before my husband died. And he and my husband were quite good friends for a couple of years.
A couple of years before.
Couple
Bob
of years
passed.
before he passed. And I know how to be in a relationship, a successful relationship. And I think that's important.
Right.
And it was both of our dreams. He dreamed of Alaska before, when he was like a kid, almost 18, whatever. And my husband and I missed an opportunity for a job up here when we were in our 30s. And so Alaska had an appeal to me. I always regretted we did not make it earlier. And here we are. So we've given each other a kind of a dream gift.
Cool.
So that's a good thing.
Yep. How about you, Adam and Phyllis?
Well,
We talk,
we
but I also need to take a break. And in the summer, I go over to the river and go fishing for a while
yeah.
and just get all my thoughts realigned. And
Part of the issue with us is we're both kind of type A personalities. At least I am very strongly. So we tend to give each other space. I'll go out in the shop or the garden or whatever and we'll get over it in a day or so and apologize. But we've been married for 25 years. So
You have-
we were together probably 3 or 4 years before that. So, I mean, it's going to happen. It's just, you can't always agree all the time, but it's
No.
what happens in that moment that determines how long you're going to stay married. And, and then, yeah,
Or
or
alive,
alive,
yes.
I know. So,
He's afraid.
so yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it harder living in a little cabin. But,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
So
you
for
just
me,
put on some warm clothes, go outside.
This is my partner here, partner in crime. That is, I
Right.
can barely see him.
Oh.
This is Kenai, my dog, and I found him in Montana. What, 11 years ago or so, maybe 12 years ago. I'm not exactly sure now. It's been so long, but yeah, I was here alone when I got here. I'm still alone today, and probably will be for the rest of my years here. So we'll see if that ever changes. But right now, there's no plans on getting in a relationship or anything like that.
Then you don't have to worry about arguing with anybody.
Right.
If you get mad at yourself, what do you do? I mean, go fishing.
You don't want to know. That might be TMI.
Exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. There is another question here from Clayton who asks, do you need a permit to open carry here?
No.
Nope.
Nope.
Concealed or open, don't matter.
Exactly.
As long as
I'd
you're
rather
not.
I keep carry open because I want them to know.
Mm.
I'm going to step off camera. I'll be right back.
Yeah, your best bet up here is to assume that everyone's carrying.
Yep.
And that way you'll avoid any uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, when I walk to work, I have my thigh holster and I leave it right out in the open. That way they know that it's there.
Yep.
Yeah,
And they're not going to bother me.
it works good as a deterrent. I mean, if you can see, oh, well, look at that. I'm not going to mess with that one. Versus wondering if they're carrying one. So sometimes having it right out in the open actually does a better job. But
Definitely.
there's still rules. You don't carry it into a bar.
Right.
That sort of thing. You don't carry it into a school. I mean,
Thing.
those are just common sense things that if you don't have that, you shouldn't be carrying anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna say anything.
And then we've got a little praise here going on from Sonia. It says, the beautiful people of Alaska saved my life, and I appreciate you all. Big respect for all of you. Well, thank you, Sonia.
Awesome.
And we're glad that you're still with us today. So
Awesome.
JR is chiming in here on Clayton's question saying, Alaska is a constitutional carry state. If you can own a firearm, you can legally carry it concealed or without a permit, that is.
Correct. Yep.
And then JR is asking if Phyllis is partially asleep.
No, I'm just listening. And I'm reading a lot of the comments off to the side. So
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I keep looking off to the side too. I'm doing the same thing on my phone.
yeah.
I'm going to say also, it's early in the day. She hasn't got all that bent up energy from being at work all day.
But we had a super long day yesterday, so today is kind of a rest and recovery day. So
There you go.
And you were very productive.
very much so.
We were.
What did you do yesterday?
Well, we made a mistake when we built our greenhouse, and somebody said, "Oh, you can just put VisQueen up there for the plastic, which is just like vapor barrier." It turns out that was a lie. It has no UV protectant in it. So in the middle of the winter here, it got a little tear. I thought, no, we're okay yet. And then we got that one day of wind and the plastic just disintegrated on the greenhouse. So we ordered actual greenhouse fabric that has like a 6-year warranty, 8 mil plastic. And it's a big job to redo the plastic on that whole greenhouse, but we did both ends. And with the ventilation issues we had last year, we installed a 4-foot by 4-foot window in the other end so we can get some cross flow in the greenhouse. So we've got the greenhouse prepped for spring.
Good.
That's quite the project.
It was huge. Yeah, I'm sore.
So Ed is saying that Matsu Valley has around 280 moose kills this year via a vehicle on the road, while Kenai has 147. So the Kenai Peninsula has 147. So the Matsu Valley is definitely has far more traffic, I think, than the Kenai does. So that's
Yeah.
part of it for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
from what I've talked to on the folks on the train, they actually haven't hit that many this year.
Right.
But they also got in trouble last year, and I guess the Fish and Game went after them and told them they need to start clearing out around the edges of the tracks more because they were something about the trees were in the way and the moose weren't being able to get off the tracks quick enough. So I think they actually did a lot of work and changed a lot of that. So now the moose are getting off the tracks before the trains get to them.
No.
So
Yeah.
kind of
Good.
One other thing about moose, as Sonia is saying here, is that moose are more scary than grizzly to me. The grizzly on Kodiak were impressive, to say the least. The moose, even here in Washington, are frightening. Yeah, moose are definitely scarier. You're going to see more injuries and deaths in Alaska caused by moose than you are bear.
Yep.
Well, the mooses go to town too.
they go everywhere.
They're looking in somebody's window.
We had one at Talkeetna last year. They called it the Mad Moose on Easy Street because he was mad mugging everybody on Easy Street as they're walking up and down, whooping them. He's like in the window, like, "What are you doing? You gonna feed me, son, or I'm gonna turn you into a mud puddle?"
Oh my goodness. And Ed's asking about drop bears.
What's a drop bear?
That's a response to John Hogan's. John Hogan said something about the cub falling out of the tree when he was up at Rob's.
Yeah.
We don't know if it was, if it was a cub or not, but we were
there
down
it
at the creek, down at the spring getting water, and we were being loud and goofy. And also we heard something go boom out of a tree, and it sounded like limbs were snapping, like something was falling out of it. Then you heard something run off. It was probably a bear, but we don't know for sure. But it was funny as hell. We laughed about it for about an hour. I didn't even see him come in here. I haven't been paying attention. Hey, Hogan.
And Kevin is asking if I've had any more signs of Sasquatch out at my property. Not yet. Well, I will say that is that the chiming that I had on the roof when I first winter here, it would happen like clockwork within 20 minutes of either side of 9 o'clock at night. Didn't matter the temperature outside, the temperature in the wood stove, the temperature in the chimney. It could be blazing hot in the chimney, blazing hot outside. It didn't matter. It could be freezing cold in one or the other. It didn't matter. The chime would happen same time of every day. That has since, for the most part, stopped. I've heard it only a couple of times since then, but also the chimney has been moved, so that's another thing. But I'm not actually been outside as much this winter as I had the last couple, and I'm really kind of looking forward to spring getting here so I can spend more time outside. So who knows what I'll find when the melt happens, for sure. But if I see any, I'll be sure to share with everybody. And Michigan Silverback says, I would think you would want to can a lot of your meat as opposed to 4 freezers. Just curious. So the 4 freezers were put in before I had a way of properly canning, because again, all I had is an old wood stove, and I needed a way to be able to make sure that I had enough food here to last me for 6 months, because I knew I was going to be snowed in at my property. And I didn't start out with 4 freezers. I've just acquired more freezers as I've acquired more fruits and vegetables and things like that. Though my plan really is to start canning this next year. One of the issues that I have, though, is making sure that the canned goods are stored at the appropriate temperature. You don't want to store them where they're subject to light. You don't want to store them where it's too warm, but it also can't be too cold. And my cellar freezes solid. I have a 500-gallon water tank down there that freezes. I have put jars of water down there in various locations to test the temperature. Sorry, I'm going to cough. So I'm going to take a drink real quick. And irregardless of where the jars of water are put in the freezer, and these are quart jars. They freeze solid overnight. So I need to get that resolved before I can start canning things and have a way to store them. But canning is definitely something that will be happening for sure. Do you guys have food stores up there for you guys? Cellar, canning, things like that, that either one of you have been doing at your properties?
Canning is something that I love to do. I've just been doing it forever. It's just I know that I need to get a much bigger pressure canner after canning all the fish last year and finding out canning fish is quite a process. And it takes like 8 hours to run a batch. So I love canned meat, especially like moose or anything like that. We used to can a ton of venison. So we'll definitely be doing a lot of that when we get moose or caribou.
Yep. And we actually have a root cellar in the cabin that we put a lot of our veggies and stuff like that. And we keep things that we don't want frozen in there that we buy in bulk. This house, we will be adding a root cellar onto it once I can get away to dig, which is probably going to want to be the Wisconsin engine I have with a drag line on it once I can get that engine back up and running. But we intend to build a nice, larger root cellar here. And we do some canning, just not enough. I need to do more.
We also do have a freeze dryer.
Correct. And we've been running that pretty much steadily this week.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Did you ever freeze dry that basil?
Yes, we've done basil. This week we did a bunch of onions,
Apples.
cinnamon apples, and what else?
Eggs.
And eggs. Again, we do a ton of freeze-dried eggs. Ever since the great egg shortage of 2022, we've been stocking up on eggs for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, we water glass all ours.
Yep. And we had them breakfast scrambled.
Yep. And I water glassed my eggs last winter, but this year I did not do that. I have some eggs in the freezer. They freeze well. Oh, that looks lovely. The bread he just baked.
Smells
But in order to water glass eggs, you have to have availability to farm fresh eggs. They can't be washed. They need to have the bloom still on them. They also can't be dirty, right? You don't want any fecal matter or anything like that on them. But it's not always easy to find farm fresh eggs here, even though there are people raising chickens here. They're not always available because there's a good number of people who aren't raising them and they will buy them up before you can get to them. So just one thing, to put out there about if you're planning on water glassing, make sure you have fresh eggs to do it with, not store-bought.
No, and you don't want them to sit more than a day before you start water glassing them either.
Exactly.
I keep buckets going 24/7 in the summertime. And if it comes into the house clean from the coop,
right.
it instantly goes right into the buckets. I've got probably three 2-gallon buckets from last year.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Ira says, how has the family reacted to your moving away? She says, I had issues with family taking my mom to Georgia with me, even though she is happy here. So any pushback from your family when you were telling them you were moving to Alaska from the lower 48?
No, not at all. I think, especially Phyllis's family that I was probably closer to, they knew we were just that kind of crazy that we would move to Alaska. I think they just kind of expect something that from us.
I kind of think a couple of my brothers might be a little jealous.
It's true.
Yeah.
Sarah had some. I'll let you say it.
Oh, well, I was in a garden club and all my garden club friends totally thought I was out of my mind. They had an intervention, if you will, and said that I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't be with Rob. I shouldn't move to Alaska. This, that, and the other thing. It happens that they were really wrong. And the next day, one girl called me and said, are we still friends? And I said, yes, I understand you have to express your opinion. My other friend, who I hadn't seen in a long time, when I let her know I had moved to Alaska, she said, for about 10 minutes, I thought, what is she thinking? And then I realized, I know that woman. That's exactly what she would do.
Right.
So
And
here we are.
I didn't really have any resistance, except for a lot of my clients were mad that I was leaving because I had a very successful marine maintenance business and I couldn't find anybody running. So I wound up closing it down. So I didn't piss off a lot of people. I made a lot of people upset that I did leave because
Right.
I did good work and I was
Yes.
one of the most affordable ones in town. All my friends were very supportive of it, except for a couple like, "You're going to die." And I'm like, "It's because you think I'm from Florida," and I'm not. You know,
Yeah,
they only
right.
knew me in Florida.
Yeah.
They didn't know me from back in New England. You know, Hogan just like giggling at them all, like, "Yeah, they don't know you very well." You know, I didn't know John until about 8-9 years ago. And, you know, he knew right away what kind of person I was. I'm an outdoorsman, you know. So when we said we're heading here, he's like, "I'll meet you up there someday."
Yeah. And for me, I did get a little pushback. Really, I got pushback just from my mom and my brother, who I think was pushing back in honor of my mom, if you will. So my mom, you know, she wasn't surprised. Nobody was surprised that I was moving up here. I talked about it nonstop for decades, but you know, they were afraid because I told them where I was moving, you know, and that I was going to, you know, be here by myself. And I think that brought some fear into them, you know, living out in the middle of nowhere, away from everybody, by myself. But then also, my brother, you know, he was concerned because he had heard stories about how violent some of the crimes have been up in Alaska, not really attributing those crimes to the more populated areas of the state. And so, you know, he was concerned about that. But I told him, I said, "Look, I'm not moving into the major city. I'm not one to frequent bars. I'm not one to walk down the street at night by myself. I'm armed to the teeth. John Wick has nothing on me as far as the amount of self-defense items carried on one's person. And I know how to use my means of self-defense, right? I practice all the time. I keep my wits about me. I'm very level-headed. I'm not reactionary. I don't panic. There isn't a whole lot that scares me." And once I, you know, kind of laid it out to everybody, like, this isn't my first rodeo, you know, then they calmed down. And as my mom's been watching my channel over the last couple of years, she's really calmed down and feels better about where I'm at and, you know, how I'm living and that I can handle my own. So
Indeed.
it takes time, though, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
And then Cranky Aunt Linda's asking, does arguing out loud with yourself count alone? Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. I just tell
I
myself
do
to chill
that.
out
He's
and
here.
go grab a drink. And PTL Fabrication has a question. Alone, where did your sidearm holster come from? And is it a 44 Magnum? So no, you see me carrying in my videos most often is a 357 revolver. And I think about it because I carry a couple different guns, but it's generally my 357 that I'm carrying. And the holsters came from Rocky Top Holsters. That's where I purchased them from. And I did a lot of research before I bought those holsters, but they're great. One of those holsters actually was my father's holster. And then the other one I bought, but they're very similar to each other. Railroad Mike is saying, speaking of greenhouses, Adam, your waste oil heater inspired me to build one. So here soon, I'm going to build one out of an old propane tank.
Awesome. Yeah, I used it extensively here this winter. And even at minus 40, I was able to get my shop up to about 85 degrees. So controlling the extra air to it is what really makes it work. And now I'm looking at building, in Florida, they call it a smudge pot. They use it in orchards a lot. But again, it's a waste oil style heater. And I'm going to build one for the greenhouse next. So that's going to be an up and coming video.
Awesome. And David is asking, how do you get on the roadkill list these days?
You have
Actually,
you
look them up online and there's a number you can call and get put on the list.
Yep.
However, there's a caveat to that. If you get put on the list and they call you at 2:00 in the morning and you're like, nah, I don't want to go, I got to work in the morning, you will get removed from the list forever.
Mhm.
So when you're on the list and you get the call, you have to go.
That also brings up another point about when the call comes, you have to go. that goes for hunting season up here as well. When like for caribou in the area where my community is allowed to hunt, you got guys sitting out there and they'll call their buddy and they'll say the caribou are on the move. That means you drop everything you have going on, you get ready and you head out and you get there as quickly as you can so that you have that opportunity to get a caribou. And also that means that everybody else in the community has gotten that same phone call. So if you're one of those people who isn't partaking in the hunt, and you want to go get something to eat at a restaurant, the restaurant's going to be closed because it's moose season or it's caribou season. And they got the call and it's unexpected and you just don't know. Or like when I first moved in here, that 500-gallon water tank that I have in the cellar of my cabin, I went to go get it filled from a water company out of Glen Allen because there's nobody else who delivers water. And I said, hey, I need to get this tank filled. And he's like, well, I only come out your way once a month. I was like, okay, can you get it filled on this date then when you're going to be back out in my area? And he said, what date? Oh, I'm sorry. That's moose season. So I won't be delivering water that month. I go, well, when will you be delivering water again? And he was like, well, I have vacation planned the following month. So I'll see you in 3 months time.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And you need water.
Yeah. And you need water, right? You need water. So luckily there's wells along the Richardson Highway that you can go collect water from. You got to pay to use the water. But that's the thing is when the call comes, they go and they don't care that it's going to impact their business. It's because they need that food in their freezers, just like we need the food in our freezers.
I mean, one moose can save you thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's worth it, at least in my eyes. But then again, I'm retired.
Yep. And then Dawn's asking, are moose aggressive like bear? I would
Worse.
say aggressive is maybe not the right answer. They're unpredictable. Very unpredictable.
And especially the cows with calves.
Yes.
They're used to trying to protect their calf from wolves
And bears.
So it's not uncommon for if you have dogs that don't know any different, they'll get stomped into the dirt. And our dogs seem to automatically know. Even dogs that have never been to Alaska before, they won't even step off the front porch if there's a moose in the yard. And then during the rut, the bulls will they'll go out, and I've heard of them actually challenging the train. They don't win, but they'll challenge the train. So they're extremely aggressive. And especially the later in the winter you get, they're hungry, they're starving, they're tired of walking around in the snow, and they tend to get on snow machine trails or dog sled trails. And your best bet is to stop and turn around. You're not getting past them, and they will absolutely attack you and kill you. So as far as bears go, I'm far more worried about a black bear, especially if you're a woman, than a grizzly bear. Grizzly bears kind of just want to be left alone unless they have a predetermined issue. Black bears will hunt you down. Back home, they were nothing to worry about. They were like rabbits. Whatever. If you were around, they left. Not here, because black bears are constantly getting beat up on by brown bears, and so when they see an easy target, they're going to go after you.
Yeah, so they're nosy. They want to look at everything. They want to inspect everything that could be food. I mean, we've had them on our front stoop.
Yep.
Yeah.
With a single pane of glass between us.
Yep. And one other thing about grizzly bears in the interior of Alaska as compared to grizzly bears on the coast is on the coast, they're very well fed because there's a lot of fish, there's a lot of salmon. In the interior, they're scrounging for every meal that they can get. So they're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the interior, than they are on the coast. On the coast, you'll see them on Katmai Bay and whatever, because they're used to the people and they're so well fed. They'll just walk by people on the trail. In the interior, you see a grizzly bear, you need to be able to defend yourself because there's no telling what will happen. But I agree with Adam that the black bears are far scarier.
And again, 90% of your bear attacks, and contrary to what books say, there are a lot of bear attacks here. 90% of them are because you got in between cubs and a sow, and she will absolutely kill you. I've got a friend up here that got attacked. I don't remember what mountain it was by, but he got in between the cubs and the sow, and his gun was in his backpack. So that was his mistake. And he got chomped to pieces, and there happened to be a military aircraft flying overhead, and they stopped and picked him up and saved his life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, beware.
And there
Bear
was a grizzly
Bear.
attack out by McCarthy where a hunter was cleaning a moose that he had killed, and he didn't have his gun on him either. And the grizzly came out of nowhere and killed the guy. So it's always good to keep your gun on you. And again, like I said, know how to use that firearm, right? Be prepared to use it at any moment.
Sure.
Oh, there was something I was going to say, and my brain just went blank. But so we'll move on to the next question, unless Rob had something to add to that.
Nope.
Okay. Tar Heel says, do you all have family near? And is it hard to make friends in Alaska?
Yes and no.
Yeah. Our son moved up in November. So for the first time, we actually have family near.
Well, I have cousins on my mother's side in Anchorage.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do reach out to us on
Yeah,
occasion.
and thank goodness for them, because they were here to save us when we landed.
Yeah. And as far as is it hard to make friends? No, but it's hard to make good ones.
Yes.
I will say the people here are a little different. And to make a really good friend that you're gonna trust, I would say kind of like us three. It's just really weird that we all moved here within 5 months of each other and we all became friends.
Yep.
But when you do find a good friend that you would trust, like if I called somebody, would you come save me? My boat broke on the river. There's very few of those. So you kind of hold on to them.
Yep. Same here with it. We don't have any family except for the other people you see on the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all we have up here.
Same here.
Very few friends. We're very selective.
Yep. I came
Yeah.
up here not knowing a soul. And pretty much in the area where I live, I only know a handful of people. Like literally, I could count them on one hand. And I've been up here 3 years.
Well, I have the thrift store, and for one, the owner of the thrift store happens to be like a soul sister. Her birthday is a day after mine. We're like the exact same age. So that friendship was very easy, and I've gotten some more friendships through the thrift store, and then Adam has gotten some friendships through work also.
Right.
Yep.
But if you don't work outside of where you live, it's pretty difficult because you don't meet people
Yep.
that much. So
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
and like I said, also, like when you do meet people and you think, that you're going to be friends with them, a lot of times they're going to hold you at arm's length until you've proved your, worth and salt here, that you can handle the lifestyle, that you're not planning on leaving anytime soon, and that you're also not going to be a burden to the community. That's the other thing they're looking for, is that you can hold your own and take care of yourself.
And we've actually, Sarah and I have actually experienced that here with the folks in Chase. We do know a number of folks in Chase, but now that we've been here, this is our third winter, people actually get more chatty with us, inviting us down and stuff like that. So that's really good to see that, that we've been here a few years, we're being accepted a little bit more.
Yep.
We think the whole town took bets on whether or not we would last the winter.
nice.
They only saw the Florida tags, 'cause
Right.
that's where we came from.
Yeah.
They didn't know we're Northerners too.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
from
Right.
upstate New York, and the snow, same here, same there.
Yep. And same with Colorado. I mean, getting feet upon feet of snow and blizzards and negative 40-degree temperatures is nothing new to many people who live in Colorado. One thing for me too is like when people found where I was moving to in Alaska, a lot of people in Alaska had never even heard of this area of Alaska. They're like, right?
yeah.
Even if I mentioned Wrangell St. Elias National Park, which is the largest national park in the nation, many people in Alaska have never even heard of it. It's the least traveled national park, also only receiving about 60,000 visitors a year.
Wow.
And most of them only make it as far in as McCarthy and never make it further into the park than that. But also, you know, a lot of times people look at you from judging a book by the cover, right? And like you said, they didn't know you were from, upstate New York and, upstate or up in the Eastern Coast. And they didn't know anything about Adam and Phyllis's background or history. And for me, they just assumed I'm just some crazy little lady with some harebrained idea that I'm going to come out here and live in a tent or what have you, and try to, forge my own path in the world. But they had no idea what my experience was and what my background really is before, I got up here. So I think that you have to be able to prove yourself. That's a big part of it.
Definitely.
Yep. So we got a question about what's the cost to build a home in Alaska? And I don't think we can put a dollar figure on that unless one of you guys can.
I would add probably 40% to what it costs to the lower 48.
Unless you're going to build the wood yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. If it's really expensive up here. Windows, say for instance, when I wanted a couple of 4-foot by 4-foot windows for the house, I went to town and nobody had any windows anywhere. They didn't exist. And then they get a shipment in and they're gone within days. So yeah, I would say it's difficult and expensive. They do some different things here. Like say I were going to put in a house, there's all kinds of rental places. That's part of where I work. Yep. Where if you need to put in a driveway, you just go rent your own dozer and they deliver it to you and you do the work. It's really weird. In Wisconsin, that wasn't even a thing. So yeah, you have that you can save yourself some money. But yeah, it's contractors, all of that. It's really difficult to find good contractors and to get them to do the work and follow up.
The other issue I see up here too is when you do get the contractors, it might take them twice to 3 times as long to get the work done that they say it's going to take.
Yeah. I would really suggest that unless you intend on buying a pre-made house, that you have some skills under your belt and some tools to go with it. Because you really need to be, like Rob, for instance, if you're not somewhat capable to do your own work, no one's coming to do it for you. Nope. So, and the cost to get a contractor out to you would be astronomical. So
it'd be 3 times what it costs you in town because we'd have to house them here.
Exactly.
And stuff like that. Or they're going back and forth on the train. Then when they get here, they're only working 3 hours and they're going home.
Right. So yeah, we all, I'm going to skip ahead. I can't change questions here, but there's a good one coming up by Northern Girl Hobbies saying, how many times have you been asked if you live in an igloo?
Nobody's asked me that yet.
Nobody's asked us.
Really?
Oh, man. Before we actually moved up here, some people had some very different views of Alaska. They assumed that all milk was expired when it got here and, that we all lived in igloos and everybody was white as a ghost because we never saw the sun. That's kind of, that's a lot of people's opinion of Alaska, honestly, but it's really not true.
Yeah, it's not true. And speaking of not true, comes the next question. What kind of bears do you have in each area? Drop bears, grizzly bears, polar bears, or mostly black bears?
No polar bears in any of our areas.
Nope.
But we do have blacks and grizzly bears, drop bears sometimes. And now there's a new one out there. If you didn't know, it's the
Pizzly bear.
Yeah, yep. Where the brown bears have ventured into polar bear territory or vice versa. And they're actually making viable bears. They're kind of odd looking, but yeah, that's what we've got.
Yep.
Polar bears you'll find up in Yukavik, Barrow, Prudhoe Bay. So very northern tip of Alaska is where you're going to find the
Up
polar
towards the
bear.
ice cap,
Mhm.
Yep.
the ice sheets. And where we're at, we get a lot of black bear, and we've got about a half dozen brown bear around us. And some of them are rather large.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I haven't seen a brown one, but they have big feet.
Mm-hmm.
Seen prints.
Nope. I already answered that one for Northern
Oh,
Girl.
okay. No.
Good. RM is saying, to Miss Alone's mama and the families and loved ones of these fine folks, you have nothing to worry about. If they were living down in the States and in cities, that's when you should worry. And I
Yes.
agree with that.
Urban.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a very good comment. I appreciate that.
Yep. And Northern Girl Hobbies, who we were just mentioning, said, smashing the thumbs up button. So thank you for everybody who's hit that thumbs up button. And both of us who are streaming on our channels appreciate it. Rob, unfortunately, the link wouldn't work for him today. So make sure you go over and watch his channel and share him some love that way. Catch up on all his videos.
Thanks, Alone.
Yep. Cranky Aunt Linda says, has anyone heard of the Bryna non-lethal pistol, which is a powered CO2 cartridge? I actually have those, the pepper ball guns. I actually have one of those as well. And it works. So if you're looking for something non-lethal, that's something that I do recommend. But getting those CO2 cartridges is something you can't get shipped to Alaska. So you have to pick them up in the stores.
Yep. You've got to pick them up at Walmart or Sportsman's or Bass Pro Shop. I have a large count of them because I have my CO2 air rifle that I use for grouse.
Yep. And Tar Heel says, what does moose taste like? I've never tried it before. It's kind of like deer wild taste. I don't think it tastes like venison at all. Even though it is a part of the deer family. To me, the moose meat that I've had has been very tender and has excellent flavor.
Yeah, it's definitely good. I prefer caribou. Caribou, as long as they're not in the full-on rut, is really quite delicious. I've also tried muskox, and it was from a muskox bull, and I will tell you that was not delicious. That
You chewed
was
on that for a while.
Yeah, that was kind of like the worst cut of a dying Holstein that you can find. It was
And I grew up on old ones of those.
yeah, better to turn them into hamburger. They're not delicious in any way.
Same with the yak. I've had yak steaks, and that is a taste and a texture that leaves something to be desired.
See, I had a yak burger in Estes Park, and that was the best burger I have ever had in my life.
Guaranteed that burger was mixed with beef as well.
I was going to say, I think I know the place she's talking about in Estes Park, and they also raise, or there's a farm in, it's out on a plain, out on a front slope that actually raises the ox for them.
Yeah,
Really?
But I guarantee you it was not pure yak in that place in Estes Park. I've eaten there as well. Very delicious. But yeah, the yak here, no offense to the yak farm that's in the Copper River Basin, but the yak meat is not. Not all that.
Maybe they need more clover.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. So PTL Fabrication says, being that you were all from the lower 48, was the proximity of resources a huge adjustment or something else a larger adjustment?
Well,
We're closer to Walmart here than we were in Wisconsin.
probably. And we don't have a Menards, which sometimes I miss because I
Yeah.
knew where everything was in Menards. But we have a Home Depot and a Lowe's. The steel was the biggest issue for me because I like to build a lot of metal projects. That's what I did all the time. And I was absolutely floored on the prices of steel here. When we put up our solar, I had to buy a 4-inch piece of pipe, 4-inch Schedule 40 pipe, and it was $400 and some for a 20-foot stick. I absolutely could not believe the price. steel prices have gotten a little bit better since COVID's kind of died off, but it's still pretty brutally expensive.
Yep. And speaking of expense for things here, so I'm about 4.5, 5 hours from either Anchorage or Fairbanks. And so if I buy stuff in Glen Allen, which is the closest town to where I'm at, there's a significant markup on the products there, whether it's groceries or hardware, you name it, it's all marked up. And if I want to save the money that it would cost me to buy those things locally, then that means I'm driving into town, which costs me an additional $200 in fuel to do so. So I make sure that I plan my trips into town, so the Matsu Valley or Fairbanks, and I hit as many stores as possible. So I'm gathering as much as I can in one fell swoop so that I can recoup some of that fuel cost of what it takes me to get into town to pick up items. But yeah, resources here is definitely an issue for where I'm at. A lot of times people ask me on my channel, why are you not doing more construction projects? Well, I don't have a truck to haul things back. I don't have a trailer to haul things back at this point. And also, if you don't pick up the product in the fall, over the summer or the fall, you're just not going to get it in the wintertime here to do the projects that you want to get done.
And with us, we have an added challenge for us because anything that's construction wise has to go in the Tundra truck to get up here.
Right.
And that can take weeks to get that up here. I mean, we've had fuel deliveries take us a month and a half to get the fuel delivery. So for us, we have to really plan things out. It's like next week, we've got to order the metal to do the roof.
Mhm.
I've got to order the C channel to redo my bed for my sawmill
Mhm.
and other odds and end pieces and other plywoods I need and things like that. It's all got to get ordered ahead of time because I might not see it until April or May.
Right.
Yep.
But by then it'll be ready to build with.
Yep. Yeah, you just shoot it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then then if you don't have a tag, then you got to call it in. But you got to call it in either way. Let them know because
Right.
you got to fill your tag if you're licensed or tagged to get the bears. But if not, if you have to shoot one in self-defense, you have to call the state. You have to better make sure you take care of the meat and the hide properly and know the regulations because there are stipulations. Even if you shoot in self-defense, you've got to do it the right way. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, one of the things that they'll do when you shoot a bear in self-defense is that they will take the paws of that bear.
Yeah.
So you can't claim you shot it in self-defense. It's like you can't shoot anything in the back and get away with it, right? But you can't shoot it in self-defense and think that you're gonna be able to keep that hide, make a nice bearskin rug out of it because they'll take the paws from it.
Yep.
So Explorer is asking, did the story of Dick Prenneke ever inspire any of you to make the move to Alaska? And I would say absolutely in my case.
Definitely for me. Sarah has not seen it yet.
Well, you showed me a little bit while we were still in Florida. I was familiar with the name and some of like a tour of the cabin, and I was impressed.
Yeah, he was definitely an amazing man, and we watched the watched the movie, I guess you'd say, and to see what he did on his own, it was pretty impressive. I mean, we strive to be that way, but I'm not going to use all hand tools if I can avoid it, just because I also have a job. So I try to speed things up a little bit, but yeah, he's an absolutely amazing person. Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely an inspiration to me. I was thinking about this actually just the other day, that I remember sitting and watching the Dick Prenneke story with my ex-husband and being absolutely enthralled, like glued to the screen. And then it was like, I don't know, maybe something came on afterwards or I saw an ad for it or something. But then all of a sudden I started looking into geodesic domes. And for the longest time, I thought I was going to build a geodesic dome and live in it until I realized that it doesn't have a whole lot of usable square footage for the shape it is. You have to build a platform to get up to the second level. And even then, it's a bit more than what you think. But yeah, for the longest time, Dick Prenicky was my driving motivation, actually, to get up here and live this lifestyle.
Yep, that's a great question.
I am scrolling back through and looking for more questions here. Tar Hills has another one, says there's a lot of reality shows based out of Alaska. Are any of y'all close to them? I think I heard McCarthy was a town in the reality shows. So yeah,
Yep.
Edge of Alaska was filmed in McCarthy, and that is about 100 or so, maybe 120, 50 miles from where I'm at.
Yep.
Rob and
Yeah.
Sarah are closest.
Yeah.
That's
Rob
right.
and
Rob
Sarah
and Sarah
are
actually are.
on.
Yeah, our property was
Yeah.
actually on the show Railroad Alaska. It was owned by Jim and Nancy James, and it's got quite a history with the old guy.
It does.
You know, there's a lot of backstory. Some of you guys might have heard it a little bit when Mike was up here a couple of weeks ago, and I will be doing more and more on talking about that as I can. I'm waiting on my LLC paperwork to get here so I can talk more with Discovery Channel to get rights to use some of the video footage from the show. And at that point, once I have that, then I'll go in more in depth on the show in my YouTube channel about what was going on with it and the property. Sarah and I were also approached by Life Below Zero to be on the show, and we passed on that, as well as Mountain Men come out with a new show. Well, they're supposed to be. I don't know if it's come out yet. It's called Mountain Men Alaska. They actually sent somebody up here and interviewed us, you know, in
Right.
person.
That was
And
funny.
the big thing with them is they want me to trap and go far away from home, and I can't do that. You know, that's Sarah can manage the house fine, but there's certain aspects of the property she cannot do.
They're just
So
heavy.
I don't feel comfortable leaving Sarah for a week or two at a time in the wintertime or even in the summertime. You
Well,
know,
that's when the
and-
bears are all
right. And
away.
I wouldn't feel safe doing that with her. So that was a hard pass on that too.
So Adam and Phyllis, have you guys been approached by any reality TV shows?
No,
No.
no,
I got
we have not. We're so close to town that it's just we're not like Rob and Sarah or You Alone. We're not that far out. We live a fairly normal life. We both have jobs and, you know, cars and stuff. It's just that we are technically off grid. So I guess we're not that exciting.
But that also doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way.
Right.
I'm looking into some things that could potentially move us a lot further off grid. We always kind of have a plan. I think until we die, we'll be planning on that next stage, that next thing, you know. I'm not, we moved here because we already had it made. We had great jobs, made a ton of money, had 80 acres and a log home. But that's the trap of life, right? Once you get that thing that you thought you always wanted, well, now what? Now you have nothing to drive you for the next thing. And that's why we left all that behind to move here. And we're definitely not staying here till we die. I think the flooding will kill me before any natural causes. So, yeah. We have not been. So,
well, I did get approached, but it made me laugh hysterically that I got approached because it was what was it?
Love Off Grid.
Yes. Yes, that is exactly who I got approached by. I was like, you obviously don't watch my channel, do you?
What one
Like,
was
that's-
it?
What's that? It was Love Off Grid.
wow.
It's like finding singles in off off-grid properties and matching them up together, and
Oh,
kind
they
of
were
like The Bachelor, but for off-grid.
They were taking people from off grid and hooking them up with people in the city.
Oh, is that
Ew.
what they were doing?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I
No.
talked to people that would talk with them. I'm like, oh no.
No, absolutely not. That's hilarious.
Wow.
Cranky Linda says, would you recommend the pistol as a home protection for someone handicapped such as I? They are supposed to incapacitate up
to
to
up
an
to an
hour.
hour. Oh,
Yeah, she's talking about that burner pistol.
yeah. So my personal belief for a woman, especially if you're afraid of guns, is not a handgun. It is a shotgun.
Yeah.
I recommend you have a shotgun and you have it loaded in a series of buckshot and slug, one right after the other. And that first buckshot is a warning shot because it's going to spray and you're going to hit a wider target. And if you're shaking, you'll have a chance that you might actually hit the perpetrator.
Yeah, and it could be anything from a 410, which a lot of smaller women enjoy, because even a 410 is gonna knock somebody for a loop. All the way up to
Well,
little-
and they also have special home defense ammo for
Yep.
a 410 shotgun loaded with discs. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a 410. Wow, I'd be, and I also recommend a pump shotgun, because I don't know how many home invasions have been stopped by the sound. They hear
Yeah.
that, they're like, "Nah, I'm out of here. I know how
Yep.
this sounds." So,
Yep.
yeah, a pistol. I mean, I have many of them. However, to be good and proficient with them takes a great deal of practice. They're not something you just buy off the shelf and you're good at it because you saw it on John Wick. It takes a great deal of practice to be proficient. So I would really suggest that not be your starting point. And Phyllis is quite proficient. That was
I
what
don't
that look was
practice.
for. Yeah.
How many times was that now? How many looks?
I don't know.
No, that wasn't the bad look. That was
No.
That was the give me recognition look because I kicked your butt in a shootout.
Right?
Oh my goodness. Someone asked what you did with Rob there for a moment, Sarah, when Rob got up and left the camera shot.
Oh, I'm cooking and things like that, and I was preparing my drink.
There
It's
you go.
those who don't know, that is an Alaskan duck fart.
Oh my.
I was going to ask you what that was.
Wow.
What is it?
It's Kahlua, Bailey's, and Crown Royal.
Goodness.
Ooh,
That sounds
It's
good.
That
It
does
is.
sound good.
yeah.
And Brooktrout is saying that watching the live stream on on Adam and Phyllis's, nobody can see what I'm responding to. So do be
Yeah.
aware that there's two different live streams happening simultaneously. Adam and Phyllis have this cast to their channel and I'm hosting from my channel. So if someone's responding on my channel, it's not necessarily appearing in the live stream on Adam and Phyllis's.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's why you might see some questions going up that you didn't see in the chat, and we apologize for that.
But like I can see brook trouts. I can't respond, but brook trout is under ours.
Yes, but we're all combined under a loan, so all of them go through a loan.
Oh,
They
Yeah.
won't see them in your chat. And that's kind of why I didn't worry about me having my screen going, because then we'd have a three-way confusion going on at that time. So
Yep.
to me, it's just easier.
just a single confusion is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of
And
it-
Mike said, so where do you guys get your dry cleaning done? Oh my goodness.
That's the second
No.
time I've been asked that question in
Really?
3 days. Yes.
We don't do dry
Really?
I don't have anything worthy of being dry cleaned.
No.
Right? It's
So-
Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alaska has been rated as having the worst fashion sense out of any state in the nation.
Oh,
I
yeah.
buy that.
If
Although,
it's warm, wear it.
Right.
hmm
And Railroad Mike is saying Railroad Alaska is not a good reality show. Most Alaska reality shows really misrepresent
absolutely.
Alaska and Alaskans.
The very true.
Yeah.
Very
true. Very
We
true.
watched
Alaska, the Last Frontier.
Alaska the Last Frontier with
Kilchers.
the Kilchers. And
Yes.
our first visit up here is when we were like, hey, wait a minute. None of this is real because the Kilchers are not that far out of Homer. They
Nope.
want you to think that they can't survive if they don't catch the fish, get the moose, trap, all this. They're 15 minutes from Safeway.
Well, the same thing went with Bush people,
Yeah,
Alaska,
Alaska.
whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Oh.
10 minutes south of Glen Ellen.
And that was
Yeah.
Right.
incredibly
Yeah, and they actually had neighbors like right on either side of their property. Yeah, and that was the hokiest show of them all.
And that's why they were getting
that
shot
was
at when they're
probably
out
the
there
hokeyest,
partying
yeah.
until 3 o'clock in the morning. That's why they're getting bullets flying over their place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What is the one Life Below Zero?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that one is the closest to reality.
No.
No?
The Last Alaskans.
Okay, that's
Oh,
the one.
yes.
The
Yeah.
Last Alaskans, those are real
Me.
people living in Alaska. If you want to see, I mean, it's a good show. It's kind of sad. But they are some of the last people that can even live in the area where they live.
Mhm.
And when they die, the property goes back to the state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
The only
a
thing
good-
with that show too, though, is not all those people were within that preserve. Some of them
Right.
were outside of it. That's
Outside
why
the
they, like the
preserve.
young boy, he bought it. He bought the property. He was building on it. He was outside the preserve. They just
Outside
made
the
it look like he was in it. But either way,
Mm.
the show is one of the best ones I've seen on it.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. As far as being real, I mean, next to that, that YouTube channel, Alaska Cut the Cord, they're pretty
So good.
Oh my goodness.
That lady's kind of crabby though, but I mean,
Always giving him dirty looks.
real. Oh,
Right. Got to watch out for that frying pan that one day might just show up randomly.
uh-huh.
I know.
Uh,
that was smooth.
That was very smooth. Yeah.
so Deb's asking, what was the deciding factor for location for each of us?
Go
What
ahead,
made
Lon.
you decide on your
Go
property?
ahead.
You started.
Well,
Me?
we wanted to. Oh yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
ahead.
Well, okay, let me start this by saying this. When I really sat down to start my actual search, right? Because for years I've been dreaming. And then when I finally started to really look at property, I put together, because I'm a research nerd, I put together a Gantt chart that had all 200 plus some communities in Alaska and had everything listed across from nearest veterinarian, nearest hospital, police, crime rate, you name it, it was on this Gantt chart. And I just marked everything out, right, with this color grid. And then I just randomly came across my property for sale in an area that I hadn't made it down that far in the Gantt chart yet. And it was really just the ideal community. When I started to research it and everything, I found that the populace was very low. The crime rate was in the negatives, meaning that people here steal your stuff, fix it, and bring it back more than they're going to do something, dire with it. Though my friend has told me, my friend that has come up and visited me a couple times, she has said that this is the murder capital of Alaska. Because I've told her about a few murders that took place over the few years. And she's like, oh my. And I'm like, that's Alaska for you.
More dangerous.
Right. But really, it was just that it fit all the check marks. It had every little thing I was looking for. So I would have moved anywhere in Alaska, though, because at the time that I moved up here, as long as I had internet signal, I could do my job. So, and I could have done it with a satellite internet, HughesNet at the time, Starlink now, whatever. So how about you guys?
For us, we had moved up here without a final destination. We had done lots of research, but the housing was an absolute boom and there was very little available. This place came on the market. We could pay cash for it and we bought it just immediately because we didn't know what we were going to do. Now, in retrospect, I seriously wish I would have rented somewhere, anywhere but here. So I knew about the flooding situation. That's how we ended up here. But either way, I guess I don't really regret it. We've made a ton of improvements. Why are you laughing?
The comment.
Oh,
That's listed at the end.
yeah. Yeah. They actually just listed 2 acres at the end of our street, right by the parks, for $60,000. And every time it floods here, that place is completely underwater by like 4 feet. So yeah, I definitely would not buy that mat.
And
That's
it's
your-
washing out.
And it's washing out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta
As the
lose-
river changes
Yeah.
its course.
right.
Yeah.
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 So
And for us, our deciding factor was the location. You know, the romance of the train,
Yep.
the views, and the other big thing was the infrastructure was already here.
Right. The infrastructure. And it
Yeah.
was the only place when we got up here, we had a real estate agent and she was excellent, but she couldn't find anybody to show us all the other properties that we had listed. There were like 6. One was in Healy. Nobody would show that property. The
Trapper Creek was,
Creek.
we found out there was a land dispute.
Yep.
There was a couple over by Toke, one in Glen Allen.
Yep.
But this was the first one we walked on, we fell in love.
Yes.
Now, when I tried to come up here 10 years prior, about 8 years prior, I was actually looking at Willow Creek, which is more towards
Where?
Alone, not where Adam and Phyllis are. Willow Creek and Willow are 2 different areas.
Mm,
Mhm.
I looked over in that area too when we started looking, but I couldn't find anything that was appealing. And we found this, and just the few photos made us fall in love. And when we came up here,
absolutely.
it's one of those deals. You're walking onto the property, and it just felt like home.
It did.
And as soon as I walked in the door, and after the first little giggles, after some other conversation, Sarah and I just like, it feels like home. And I said, I
Yeah.
agree. And she says, is this a plan or is this a dream? And I said, it's a plan.
And here we are. Yeah.
Yep.
It reminds me a lot of my seasonal property in upstate New York at some level, where I was probably some of the, before this, happiest times of my life. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And this is beautiful.
And that's how it was for me when I drove onto the driveway. As I drove up the driveway and saw the cabin, it felt like home. I knew that this was a place I needed to be.
Mhm.
So Dawn is saying, however, wouldn't you agree having the trappings of life, money, etc., gave you the means by which to move to Alaska? Yes. For me, it
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, having a good job with a 401k and being able to save money over the years, being wise with my investments, and selling my house in a time where the housing market was ripe. And I was allowed to profit off of my house that I had in Colorado, absolutely allowed me to come up here and buy my property, to invest in the things that I invested in, to be able to stockpile some money away for rainy days here and future projects and things like that. Yeah, I couldn't afford to do it the way I've done it, but I know all sorts of people that have come up here with just a backpack on their back and have still been here for 30, 40, 50 years
And thriving.
and made their way in Alaska.
yeah. Yeah, it made a big difference for us too. I mean, to have everything that we've got, we've been quite blessed to have no payments other than a cell phone. And we're
Yeah.
off grid. We don't have an electric bill. We don't have a water bill. We don't have all the made up bills they kept making up back home. So, and plus, when I had all the trappings of life, so to speak, I love my toys, right? So if I wanted a $25,000 side by side that would do 120, I would just buy it. If I wanted a new snow machine, I would just buy it. So the trappings of life came with a great deal of debt for us too, because
Well, is that why they're called trappings?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
possibly. I was maybe somewhat less responsible than Miss Alone because I really like to do fun things. And that's why part of the reason why I wanted to move here was because there's so much more stuff to do in life that if you stay right where you are, you'll never do it aside from that 1 week per year vacation that you might take. And
Yep.
I got a comment the other day, a buddy that wants to come up, he asked what I was doing this summer, and I told him everything we had planned, and he's like, well, it seems like all you do is screw off since you moved to Alaska. I said that's not really the case, but I don't have a shop and all the responsibilities, so I can actually do the things that I'm not really known for in the last 10 years, but what I used to do. So, yeah, it's freeing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say that is pretty much the census that you'll get from a lot of people up here, is that Alaska basically gives you nothing but opportunities to go out and experience the state.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I can't say yep because we haven't done it.
We haven't done it.
The opportunities are there. You just have to be able to take them, I should say.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
You know. So Russell says, do you all find in dealing with locals up there that they are more concerned with where you came from, or that you care about the state and are helpful to your communities?
I would say we get a fair amount of that here.
It's about half and half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 50-50 on that.
I think so too.
Yeah. Willow's a really cool community. They're a super tight-knit community and they really look out for each other. But if you come up here and say that you moved from California, well, it's you're going to be not that well received.
It's gonna take 3 years before you're accepted, where if you're from the Midwest, it's 6 months.
Yeah. And you do get a cool, like when flooding and stuff is happening, you get people that check up on you.
Yeah.
They're like, man, I hope they're okay. I know where they're at, kind of thing. So that's really appreciated, where you wouldn't have that back home at all.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I would say here, there isn't really so much, at least in the area where I live, there really isn't so much about, are you helpful to the community? That the only way you're really helpful to the community here is that you take care of yourself. That's all anybody in this area cares about. Can you fend for yourself, or are we going to find you frozen in your cabin, or are you dumb enough to go out and get yourself trampled by a moose or eaten by a bear? That's really all they care about here as far as that part is concerned. But I will say, for Alaskans as a general state of mind, as a general whole, Alaskans are very kind people.
Yes.
They really are concerned with everybody's welfare, and they really are genuine people. It's also a very religious state. So if you're from an area where maybe religion isn't such a big thing, you might be shocked to hear how much religion matters and how much people really believe in the church and in the Bible, and that they, promote it. So, like where I live, there's only one radio station, and it's a religious radio station. So that's if you want to listen to the radio, that's it.
Yeah. You see, with us, when we come up here, most people were pretty cool about with us being here, but we were a couple of people like, so what do you bring to offer? What do you bring to the table?
What do you bring?
Oh,
But
wow.
those are other off-gridders in our area.
Yep.
So they know whether, if they need something, if I can come help and become in my comfort zone, or if it's something that would be comfortable. That's why we were asked, what do you bring to the table? Like there's a gentleman that's probably about another 20 miles north of us.
Right.
Nice guy. He owns a business in town. He's like, what do you bring to the table? I said, well, diesel mechanic, because I do know how to work on diesel, solar, electric, stuff like that. He's like, you'll be all right here.
Yeah.
He says, it's not too often you be called on, but if somebody has a problem and they call upon you and you help them, that person will be there to help you when you have an issue.
Right.
And that's the big thing. They want to know where your knowledge lies. So if somebody does need help, if this guy over here can't help them, they're going to call you. And if you need help, that phone call will go around and bounce around to help you. That's one thing I love about up here. The community, the sense of community is big.
It is.
Our friends in town, their kids, big thing that they always say, it takes a community to build a community.
Right.
And that's kids that are saying that, and they're big on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tar Heels says, how did you all find the land and the house that you have? Is it hard to find a good realtor? Is it hard to find a good lot or acreage?
It's hard to find a good lot or acreage.
Yeah. We've got, depending on the area of Alaska you live, we've got some really good realtors here. Some that I really honestly trust. The way we found ours, I think we were just looking on MLS listings. And it popped up. We drove over here and we called and made an offer. It was that quick. Very little thought went into this program here at all.
How we live life.
Yeah. So as far as finding good acreage, yeah, that's harder. That's quite a bit harder. But I think our next move, depending on a couple of things that are going on, might be quite a ways from here. Not sure. Still in Alaska, but
It better be.
Hmm?
I said it better be.
It will be. It will be.
Yeah, it's there's a couple places over by Alone that are amazing.
Hmm.
There's a couple places on the Kenai that are amazing. There's some places up by Rob and Sarah that are amazing. So
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
that's the thing, is that there is such a wide variety of different land types and climates in Alaska. Alaska is such a big state that the climate is different in different areas of the state, right? I mean, you have the more temperate climates down on the south central southern side of Alaska, the peninsula, the Aleutian Islands. You have more frigid temps the further north you go towards Barrow and Prudhoe Bay. And even where I live is way different than where either Rob or Sarah live. For one is you guys have fiddlehead ferns there.
Yeah.
We
There are
do.
no ferns. There are no ferns here.
The
Really?
ferns are
I'll
bigger than
say,
me. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, none. And just like I
Yeah.
said, we don't have birch here either, where you guys have birch on your side of the state, but we have black spruce. You know,
Wow.
so the area where I live is considered to be drier than the rest of the state. Even though I've seen heavier rains here or more rain on an average daily basis than I've ever seen anywhere in my life, even in the Northwest. You know, but we're not, oh, my camera froze again, but we're not rainforest here by any means.
Oh, we got you covered alone.
right. Yeah, we're making up for it.
Alone,
There
do
you
you
go.
had pickled fiddleheads yet?
No, I have not tried them.
All right,
Okay.
I'll make you a batch and make sure you get them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll be doing that this spring.
Yeah. We'll be
For sure.
fiddle. Go ahead.
We have acres and acres and acres of them, as you guys know, because when you guys come up here, they're like 6 feet tall.
Right.
I know it's amazing.
Yeah, Rob has, and that's the craziest thing about Alaska. It's a temperate rainforest, really, but to see it go from 8 to 10 feet of snow to ferns that are just as tall in
Yeah.
the summer, it's like it just can't be. How can it go from 50 below to ferns that are 6 feet tall?
Right.
And it really is that way. It's a crazy place.
Yeah.
We kind of nicknamed the lower trail Jurassic Park
We
because
did.
it looks like
Yeah.
a park down there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
I could just imagine being a kid and living in a spot like that with your siblings, be like going off and between the plants and scaring each other. It'd be great.
Yeah, the people that lived here before me, they said that their kids would swim in the pond behind me. And like I said, it's not very deep. I think it's only honestly a few feet deep in the deepest part of it. But I think about walking down that trail, right, as a kid, going off this pallet deck that you have built on this little pond and swimming in it, you know, in icy cold. The water here is cold, but you will see a lot more people swimming in Alaska's waters than I ever saw in Colorado, you know, which
Same with
surprises me.
freshwater Alaska, because down in Florida, you don't swim in freshwater, especially if it's dark water, because you can't see the
Right.
gators.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So we got a comment here from Randy who said, Wasilla Randy said, thanks to Alone for her videos. I moved here 1 year after watching her first video. I bought a 1970s fixer-upper on 2 acres on the grid. I love it here. Thank you all. Well, that's the whole reason that we're doing this for you guys today. And I don't know about you guys. How much longer do you guys want to go?
I'm open to that.
We don't have
Whatever.
plans.
Okay, we'll go for a little bit longer, but I've got a puppy I've got to tend to as well. So we'll go for a little while longer and answer some more questions as long as you guys have them. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody who is providing questions for us today and commentary. We really appreciate all of you guys.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
1968 Alaskan Sourdough, another great channel I recommend you guys check out, said there is a guy with a family, I think, that homesteaded on the north slope close to Niquizit. I can't pronounce that word. Sorry. No trees, cold winters, mosquitoes, and polar bears. Not a show, just a fact. Why there? Crazy. Yeah, that's the one thing I think about, for the people that are the indigenous people that live up there on the northern slope. Why they settled there, is beyond me. I get if maybe have a taste for whale and seal, but after that, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No.
Yeah, there's no. How do you get firewood?
Yeah.
I
Probably burning peat.
Right?
oh, could be.
Charcoal.
Yeah. Russell RW looked at our place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you would have bought it out from under us.
You're gonna
We-
make it hard to sell,
We'd
sweetie.
still be living in Stoney's cabin, which was a great cabin, honestly.
D. Stu said, "Man, I love you folks. What a fantastic group of people. At least you all seem like it. Thank you for sharing some of your life and experience living in Alaska. Now, do you still have snow on the ground?"
Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Will be for another month or two.
Yeah, we
Yeah, for
decided-
here, I'll have snow on the ground until the first week of June. So somewhere around the
Oh.
7th to the 10th of June, I'll still have snow on the ground.
I'm thinking
Ours
it was
is
what we got. We'll be
April.
done by mid-May.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We decided this morning there are really only two seasons. There's
White
white
and
and green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
How long will you guys have snow on the ground, Adam and Phyllis?
If this weather keeps coming like it's predicted, maybe only another month or
Yeah.
less.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it won't be very long. Last year, I was completely done with firewood in May.
But we still
wow.
had snow on the ground at that point.
Yeah, we still had a little bit of snow on the ground, but I was completely done with firewood in May. So, barring a 3-foot snowfall,
I would
I-
say end of April. I bet we're done.
yeah, we should
Here.
be pretty much done.
Yeah, I'll probably get the last snow in April, but it'll stick around until June.
Oh,
Mm.
my.
Yeah.
Because when was dip netting?
July.
Oh, that's July.
Yeah,
Never
July.
mind.
What's your
And
temperature
PTL
down in Adam?
Say that again.
What's your temperature down there now, Adam?
It was
Uh,
35 last time I was out.
Phyllis will go check quick.
We're sitting at 39.7, so
39.7, yeah.
basically 40 degrees right now.
We're at
Let's see here.
38.
I don't have a
38.
gauge that can tell me what it is actually outside, but the weather app says that it should be about mid 40s right now.
Oh,
Wow.
so everybody's warmer than us.
Weird. Yeah.
It's your cold
Yep.
heart.
That could.
PTL Fabrication says the deer ticks and stink bugs are now bad in Pennsylvania. Are ticks and or stink bugs a problem in Alaska? I've not seen a stink bug here at all.
I've not seen
I've
a tick.
not, I've not seen a tick either.
I've not
So
seen
I've
a
not
tick.
seen
Well,
ticks,
see.
but there is
I don't know about a stink
a
bug.
tick. I don't remember what tick it is. But rabbits get the ticks and then they get a disease. And if Ed's still in the chat, he'll know what I'm talking about. They get a disease, tuberculosis or something like that.
Transferred to a fox recently, if I remember right.
Yeah. What happens is the dogs chase the rabbits that are sick because of the tick. The dogs then become immediately sick. They get flu-like symptoms. You get sick when you contact the saliva that's touched the rabbit's bloodstream,
Good job, Adam.
and that touches your hands, and then you touch yourself, and then you're sick. And it causes flu-like symptoms. So,
This is making me itchy.
right?
Please.
I know.
But those ticks are. They said they're up by Fairbanks. So
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's the one that was reported was more down towards Anchorage.
Maybe it's on the move.
Ed. Tullamarine.
Yeah, Tulmeria.
Tulmeria.
That's what it is.
that's
Yeah,
it.
and then the other thing, speaking about Fairbanks and over, you guys mentioned Healy. So over in that little crescent from like Healy up through Fairbanks, when I was looking at property, I was shocked at how big the mosquitoes are there. There's a reason they call it the state bird, because the mosquitoes are huge, absolutely huge. And here I have little teeny tiny mosquitoes.
Same
You
here.
know?
Yeah.
I mean,
But
last
down
year they
by
were a
the
little bit bigger at about half an inch long, but the ones up there are like an inch and a half. It seemed like they were massive.
Speaking of which, I saw a meme on that on Friday. Somebody had posted, man, I cannot wait till it's 75 degrees and I can sit on my back porch with a beer. 376 mosquitoes liked your post.
Oh my goodness. Mike says, I know Alone doesn't have a hybrid stove, but do the other two homesteads use a stove that can burn wood or coal?
Yes, I'll show you real quick.
Oh man.
Oh, we're gonna
Oh,
tour.
it's definitely coal, but we have a wood-fired cook stove that is an Obadiah 2000 made by Hecco, and I love it.
We love it.
So you can burn coal in that too, Rob.
We had the option to get an accessory for that. We did not. I can probably build something. All it is a shake grate.
Okay. Okay.
So I could probably build one and put it in there.
Okay. Ours only burns wood. We do have a backup Toyo stove, kind of like Alone does. Just we have a little bit smaller version that burns heating oil. But as far as our wood stove goes, it's just straight wood.
Yep.
Our one in the cabin is straight wood.
Yep.
So we got
Very-
another question here from Railroad Mike, and he says, my wife is watching and asked if any of you have children, and if so, what are their thoughts on leaving your home prior to Alaska?
Well, we have the one son,
Yep.
and he didn't want to go because was 18 years old and he's got girlfriends and such. And I said
Multiple.
that's fine, but we're leaving. You can go or you can stay, but that's your choice. And he moved up here in November. So
Yep. So what? 2.5 years later, he came up to visit,
Yeah.
and
he couldn't believe how awesome it was.
Mhm.
And he
2
moved
months
up.
later, he moved up.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
moved here to stay.
And I've got a 24-year-old son, but he's down in Florida. He won't come up. He don't like the cold.
Yeah. My daughter and grandchildren are in upstate New York.
Yeah.
You
And
tell
I
him it's
have-
warmer
They're
here than
all-
it is in
not-
New York.
See?
What was that, Phyllis?
Did you tell him that it's warmer here than it is in New York?
I don't know.
I don't know. They're not easy to live with, shall we say that?
Okay.
So I have 3 children, but they had all moved out prior to my decision to move here. In fact, it was when the last one was moving out, I was like, why am I staying here? Like, there's nothing to hold me here anymore. My children had either moved to other states or were hundreds of miles away from me. My mom had moved a few years prior to another state. I had no real other family in Colorado. A couple aunts and uncles, but not anybody I saw on a regular basis. And I figured, why not move? And my children were fully aware that that was going to happen. Because like I said, I'd been talking about it nonstop for decades. So everybody was like, yeah, she's moving.
And they're
You
adults.
know. Yeah, exactly.
Time for them to be independent and you be independent as well. And that's the situation I'm in. It's time
Yes.
for them to grow up and be independent. My daughter's like 50.
Yep.
And they make their own decisions and we make ours.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's a well-developed system.
Yeah.
Right on.
I am
Yep.
scrolling through looking to see if there's any more questions.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Brooke Trout is saying would have, could have, and should have way back around 1990. I think that's when we all wish we had thought about moving up here originally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Tar Heel says, does the long nights and staying inside a lot affect your emotional well-being? How do y'all get good internet there? So
Good
two
question.
questions.
Yep. Long
Um,
nights and staying inside. The biggest thing for us that keeps that from being a factor is adapting new hobbies for per the season, right? So snow machining in the winter. We do trips doing that. We do other stuff. We don't just stay in the house. Plus, I have the shop, so I can go out there and continue working even though it's dark out. As far as internet, Phyllis, you cover that one.
It's a long story, but we are borrowing a Verizon hotspot basically from
Yeah.
a friend of ours.
We pay for it monthly, so it's
Yeah.
not really borrowing. We're paying for it, but
Right, but it's under her name. Anyway, it has been pretty good except for like the last 5 days of the month. It really slows down.
That's a
So,
data plan. That's how that
Yeah.
happens. It's like there's a limited gigabyte usage or whatever on it, and once you start approaching within a certain fraction of that, they slow it down.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For now, I don't see us getting Starlink or anything like that until we move to a more forever type place.
Yeah, I'd have to remove too many trees because we're kind of in a bowl. In order to get a good Starlink signal, I'd have to remove every tree for 1,000 feet or put it 1,000 feet up. So
Maybe this summer I'll bring mine down there because I have the portable base for it. We'll set it up in the yard, see if it works.
yeah,
yeah.
we could give it a try. I mean, if it would work, I'm all in for doing a Starlink.
Because
But
we
does
switched
it
to
work with you?
What do you mean?
If we were to move from this location, does it go with us?
well, of course.
Yeah. If
Oh.
you get, yeah.
They basically, when they ask you like they ask you for your coordinates, your GPS coordinates, they're wanting to know if it's available in your area is why they ask that. But you can take it wherever you go. I've got a friend that he bought one basically the same one I did. It's on his boat, and he travels all over the Caribbean with it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Even though you're
okay.
supposed to have the kit for the boats or a camper, he does it with a regular one. They don't know.
Huh.
They see it moving, but they don't give him heck. I mean, we've had Starlink for a year this month, and
Yeah.
the first couple of months was sketchy. If some of you guys are in here have been on our lives this time last year, they were hit and miss because we'd lose signal or it'd go pixelated or it'd fade in and out. That's because they were in the middle of building a new receiving station down the Aleutians. And now, since they finished it in September, we hardly ever have an outage. I think we've had one outage in the last month or in the last 6 months, and that's it.
So,
Nothing.
and I am on DSL currently, the old DSL, which does cause some issues here. It's very slow. It's my upload speeds are 1 megabyte per second. So it takes me forever to upload a video. If I upload a video, I can't do 4K from here. I have to go do it elsewhere if I'm going to do 4K. If I upload just a standard high def video from here, if it's longer than 15 minutes, it can take upwards of 24 hours to upload.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, most of my videos though upload in about 10 hours time.
Ouch.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very slow. And then you get a power outage in the middle of it and you have to start all over again.
Yeah, I just ran a speed test on my Starlink right now, and I've got 152 download and 22 upload, and we're cloudy right now. I've seen it up to 300 on download and up to 75 on the sending it up for uploading videos.
Yeah, my download speed is 11. Yeah, so very, very slow here. And then what was the other part of this question? Does the long nights and staying inside affect your emotional being? Not for me, because I'm crazy. I don't get it. I'm not a person that's like easily depressed or lonely or things like that. I'm always cracking myself up over one thing or another. I
Yes.
am giggle box after giggle box after giggle box here. So yeah, for me it doesn't really affect me, but I do have to admit that taking vitamin D also helps. Like if I'm feeling like I'm getting sluggish or I feel like just not really myself, I find that if I take some vitamin D within a couple of days, I'm back up and happy as can be again.
Yeah. And me, I'm outside.
outside.
Doesn't matter if it's dark or light out. I'm outside doing stuff. It doesn't faze me a bit.
Yep.
There's a lot to do. There
Yeah.
is a lot of maintenance up here, a lot of stuff to keep track of. And when I feel a little bit bored or out of sorts, I go outside. And my job is taking care of the house. And in winter, my job is making sure that we have enough water. I don't deal with the spring water. He goes down on the snow machine and gets the spring water.
She melts the
brings it back.
snow.
I melt snow. So I'm bringing in sleds full of buckets and putting them in a little tank behind our stove and melting it. And then I run a hose from the stove to the cellar, store
Okay.
water.
There you go. And
That's
how
most
and you guys are storing your water underneath your cabin.
Yep.
And the things that you've done this year, has your water frozen yet under your cabin?
One time, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
because we had a critter get underneath the house and knock the insulation down.
Oh,
But we've only got R10 insulation running around the underside of the house.
Mhm.
But I also installed a fan to blow a little bit of the warm air from in the house down there. And since we put that in, the lowest I've seen it get was 29 degrees for about 2 hours.
Oh, that's
And
good.
back up, but that's because it was overnight, so the house cools down overnight.
Right.
Because I don't rage the fire overnight. I've basically shut it down just to keep the house
Yep.
warmish. And then in the
Yep.
morning it was cold, and I'd crank it back up, get it warm in the house. Within 2 hours, it was warm back up to about 30 degrees.
And how much headspace do you have between the ground and the floor of your cabin?
At one end of the house, about 1.5 feet. Basically, I can squeeze in there. I'm not a huge guy, but I'm not a small guy. And the beams will be rubbing my back. But at the other end, about 4.5 feet.
Okay. Yeah. See, my cellar is the same footprint as my cabin. So it's 30 feet by 30 feet and it's 8 feet tall down there. So I've got a lot of dead airspace down there. And yeah, it definitely, things freeze in there, as I mentioned earlier. So
I bet if you put in a fan system like I did here with a couple registers, basically clearing the floor, you would
Yep.
circulate that, and that would not happen. I think I had mentioned that in an email when we were talking about that before.
yeah, in fact, at the bottom of the steps leading from the loft down to the main floor of the cabin, there used to be a vent in the floor right there. You can see, and I plan on replacing that so that I can bring cool air up in the summer months, and I can push hot air down there in the winter months for sure. And then this question is for Adam and Phyllis. Are you planning a move, which you kind of hinted about already, that you're been looking at properties at least?
Yeah, we've been doing quite a bit more looking here lately. There's going to be some opportunities coming up that may afford us that. I love our place. Don't get me wrong. We're close to the Parks Highway, yet we're the only people that live down here. So it's kind of awesome. You've got all the benefits of being totally off grid, yet you're not that far away from civilization. But the flooding is just too much. So yes, we are looking at moving.
And then Sonia has a question about, are you concerned with chemicals from melting snow for water? Do you use filters of any kind, chemicals from chemtrail spraying?
If the chemtrails are coming down, that'd be the only thing we're getting into the water, into the snow, because we don't really use any chemicals around the house.
No.
We don't use pesticides of any sort or fertilizers that would be chemical based. I do have filtration in place. I have a 0.5 micron. So basically I could take the creek water and put in these tanks and drink it by the time it gets through, because it goes from a coarse material down to a 0.5 micron, and a 5 micron Giardia is filtered out. All kinds of other things are filtered out. So technically you could drink it. I just prefer the spring water. But chemical wise, I'm not worried about it because it's going to be a lot less than you would get from your water in the city
Way.
by far, including bottled water.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And when I melt snow here, it's mainly for the chickens, the dogs, and washing dishes.
Washing dishes,
And
showers.
any of our drinking water goes through a Brita filter, which it can actually
Not a
take,
Brita,
or
Berkey.
a Berkey, sorry, a
Berkey.
Berkey filter. And that can actually take food coloring out of water, which I can't hardly believe that, but and that all of our drinking water goes through that. And
Yep.
the neat thing about melting snow is you don't have the hard chemicals. You don't have the calcium or the lime or any of that in there. So it doesn't plug up my filters like using tap water will plug up the Berkey filters.
Or
So-
well water.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And well water in Alaska is notoriously awful. It's either extremely hard or it's just pure iron coming out.
Yep. So the well water in the area where I live, there's a couple different wells. Some of the aquifers have the most sulfuric smell to them.
Oh,
Some of them are very coppery, hence the Copper River basin that I live in. And the well that I typically get my water from, the water there is very, very hard. So I have to clean my Berkey filters more frequently than I ever did when I was using city water.
Wow.
But because it'll clog them up completely where they just won't get any flow through them. But you can just descale them with a green scour pad, and that generally works at making them flow again. But I have only melted snow here that first winter, and I boil all my water. So like I'm not really concerned about any contaminants in the water. Even the well water that I get, it goes into the Berkey. And then the only thing I use that water for is for making coffee, tea, or cooking with. I don't actually drink water. I'm a very bad person.
I do.
You drink a lot of water. It's filtered through coffee beans.
yeah.
Right?
Coffee or
Right.
tea, coffee or tea or chocolate.
Right. If I drink water, I am guilty of drinking bottled water, carbonated bottled water, in the form of
The soda
Just kidding.
stream.
again.
Goodness.
No, I'm just kidding. I do drink more bottled water than I do actually from the Berkey. But I've always been that way. I've lived my whole life on very little water. So but I'm definitely not afraid of it, that's for sure. Rick says, what's the average cost of an acre that could connect to electrical? In my area, used to be about $5,000 an acre. But it 5,000? Yeah, I think 5,000. But it's since gone up. I would say it's double or triple that now.
Yeah.
Nope.
There's some places up by
I'm not
Tell-
buying it.
or even by us where it's 90,000 for 1 acre.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, I don't even know if it could be connected to electrical or not. But yeah, it's just an acre of vacant land, if it's on the road system, is way higher than if it's not.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you wonder what I'm munching on here, we've got freeze-dried apples right here.
Oh, yummy.
They are positively delicious. I don't know what the freeze dryer does to certain fruits, but it intensifies the flavor by 100%,
Mm-hmm.
especially blueberries. Oh my goodness.
I'll have to try some of those, Adam.
Yum.
Yeah, they're like blueberry flavored sweet tarts. They are just, they're intense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we are caught up on questions. So I want to, again, just say thank you to everybody. Also to Rob and Sarah, Adam and Phyllis for putting this together today and joining me. I really appreciate you guys doing so and providing such useful and valuable information to everybody in the chat and those listening at home. Any last questions though before we pop out? I would stay on longer, but I don't know if you guys have noticed I've kept putting my screen on mute for a second because I have been sneezing all morning long, and I think I need to go take some antihistamine or something before I start embarrassing myself with a sneezing fit on here.
Oh no.
Nope, that's
Nope.
okay.
We're all good.
Yeah, definitely. We want to give a huge shout out to everybody on here and to Miss Alone and Rob and Sarah. You guys have been just great and super supportive. And if you have any questions, well, RM, what's a good freeze dryer brand? Ours is Harvest Right freeze dryers. They're the best and they've got really good customer support and tend to really last. We have run ours a long time. So thank you, everyone. And especially thank you to, we've got a couple of moderators in here.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you guys for all your support. It means the world to us.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
And all you guys' support coming in. I mean, there's 150,
Huge.
150-70 in here.
Wow.
I know it's a mixture of all of our channels, but we appreciate everybody here, not just from our
Absolutely.
channels, individuals, but for all of you guys. You all make a big difference here from all the channels.
Awesome.
And
Yes.
Mike is asking if you guys are going to host your Monday Night Lives as usual.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And then we've got RM who's asking for encore performances of this live stream on a regular basis. Something
Yeah.
I think we'll have to discuss, but I'm up for doing it again. I think it's been a great opportunity. But the nice thing about the three of us is that we each have StreamYard available to us. But I don't know if we can all host the way I pay for mine. So we'll try to make it fair for everybody, so it's not all just coming through my channel as well.
We'll get it worked out.
We'll figure something out.
So with that being said, though, I do want to say thank you again to everybody. I really appreciate all of you. Whether you're new to the channel or you've been watching for a long time, whether you've popped over to watch it from Adam and Phyllis's, or you're coming in here from another channel, we all greatly appreciate each and every one of you.
Definitely. Y'all are
Awesome.
amazing.
And we've got a nice comment here that says, thank you for the information. Interesting live stream I've ever been in. Well, good. Glad we could provide that for you. And JR wants to know who played Leave It to Beaver. And if I was feeling better, I would be able to probably answer that question for you off the top of my head.
I can't.
I don't know.
Right.
Nope.
We'll figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll start off live with that tomorrow.
Right.
Leave it to JR.
So,
all right,
Well,
with
this is Adam.
and Phyllis.
Lumpy, JR wants to know who played Lumpy. Oh my goodness. Jerry Mathers. Thank you for that, Billy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll leave it here with Arlen saying good night to everyone. Everyone have a good rest of your St. Patty's Day. Be safe and drink responsibly.
Yes.
Right.
That's us.
Yeah.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.